One thing is 100% crystal clear, ladies and gentlemen, and it's that the private Federal Reserve has raised interest rates more on President Trump in the last 13 months than it did in 8 years of Barack Hussein Obama. And that raising interest rates will put a damper on the fast-growing economy. And, of course, the stock market being a major engine of that economy when it's coupled with a reindustrialization, retooling, and, of course, rebuild of the infrastructure, all of which we are in a headlong assault right now against the globalist to try to turn the republic back on before it's too late. And if you needed a cherry on top, as we've been predicting this, the clips are all coming up in the next segment, if you needed more added evidence, they've been bragging about it. They've been talking about it. They've been trying to talk down the stock market. And then ABC News yesterday had news alerts when it had only dropped 400 points saying, news alerts, the stock market crashed. A crash is more than half of a market. They've got lots of other names like Bloody Friday or Dark this or Dark that. But we would have had to have lost 6,000 plus points in the stock market, 6,013 points on top of the 1,500 plus, close to 1,600 points. So we're talking close to 8,000 points it would have had to have fallen. The stock market's up 40% on the Dow Jones Industrial Average history in the last 13 months. Well, 15 if you count since he was president-elect, technically. And look, it's a big bubble. It's dangerous. You name it. And it's regained, a few hundred points from yesterday. But it's our bubble. And the communist Chinese are on record putting many times more of their yins and yang in to prop up their stock market. And if you talk down their stock market, you get imprisoned or even executed. So all the people that are cheerleading for China and saying it's in a better position, it's not because of the cultural disparity of rich versus poor and the fact that they are totally maxed out and have low energy stores and a lot of other factors. I don't wish China bad, but the globalists have put their eggs in that basket. Lloyd Blankfeins bragged about it in his Twitter feed, and they're betting on an American collapse and a Chinese century. That's the religion of the Council on Foreign Relations and the globalists for 40 years. Look it up for yourself. You've all heard in The Economist magazine everywhere, the breathless Chinese century that's coming, and they've got all the technology, and they'll kill Christians and Buddhists and sell their organs, and they've got one-child policies. Why? They're really progressive. They're totally banning Christianity. The left in Hollywood likes it. Can't watch any show that's supposedly based in the future from Netflix or Hollywood that isn't China-centric, China-file. No Americanism. It's all global Chinism or China-wood. It's all built on sand. And if America gets its morals back and gets its optimism back, nothing can stand in our way. And we will raise the entire planet as we did for our first 170 plus years. 180 plus years. Really, the first 200. And they know that. And that's why globalism is up against Americanism. And that's why Trump has now told his greatest truth yet, saying Democrats are like death, un-American and treasonous. That video is straight ahead. And it's tomorrow's news today. In fact, just yesterday in the second hour, I talked about the fact that we're on top of a giant bubble and that it could be imploded by the Federal Reserve raising interest rates at any time, but that it's all Trump could do to have a bubble for the people instead of the globalist. Just like you give a dying person an adrenaline shot, hoping it brings them back to life, and sometimes it makes their heart explode instead of saving them. As we were talking, the organized plunge had begun. And we 100% know that Goldman Sachs and J.P. Morgan and other big trading arms of those combines had their automatic computers, that's being reported by CNBC, set that when the market dropped just a few hundred points, they had been pre-programmed to a lower threshold to kick into auto selling. Because it had dropped a couple hundred points a few weeks ago, a few months ago. They had already decided. They go, oh, it's the computers. But who programs the computers? It's like, oh, the computers decide who to not give health care under bioethics. Why, the Watson computer, named after a top Nazi, Thomas Watson, the computer decides to stop giving you food and water and kill you. It's okay. But who programs it? So Goldman Sachs and others with their patented, and Bloomberg's involved in it as well with his own system, super fast trading systems that can siphon billions off a day, basically swindling your regular traders. They had it programmed at a very low threshold, not where if it plunged 1,000 points or 2,000 points, but if it went down a couple hundred points, they're saying it's all proprietary, but stock traders on Wall Street saw it all kick in when the market dropped 200 points. And then as soon as it fell, other groups that had theirs set at a higher threshold where it had to be a bigger plunge, then they all started boom, 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 kicking in. And then you saw the plunge protection team, obviously Trump calling up the Federal Reserve and going, I will fire you right now if you don't stop that. And then they'd play the game of, oh, yes, sir, we'll stop that right now. So it was artificially plunged by the public hearing, oh my gosh, uncertainty, the country's in a civil war, the Federal Reserve is going to raise interest rates a lot. They've already raised it in the last 13 months, more than 8 years of Obama. That drove things down. And we noticed some of the big top firms were selling. Some of the top Apple guys, some of the top Amazon guys, some of the top Facebook people, they were all selling the hour before, just enough to start the dip. And then the auto trading kicked in. So last week, what did we say about them raising interest rates yet again and saying that they need to go up even more? We said that could kill the market, and everybody else that does research said that. And then meanwhile, not just yesterday, but today, robo-advisor websites have been crashing, locking out traders from their accounts. So you also have the big companies, not just because of the volume, but locking people out. It's famous. They're famous for doing that so that they can control the trades, and so they can get out, but you can't get out. They can pre-program the computers on what they're going to allow to go down. They can set how much they're going to let it go down. Then they can go in and start their sells, but knowing it's going to trigger a panic, they cannot let you sell until they know the plunge protection team's going to kick back in. Then they go in and turn the control back off. And it's just the little guys, the middle size, the big mega ones, the big banks, foreign governments, they're all in our stock market just scamming away and making money off riding it down and riding it up, riding it down and riding it up. And I know this, you know this, we all know this. The point is Trump engineered it so that a lot of the money would actually go to Main Street and go to reindustrialization and retooling and infrastructure. And that's why all these foreign companies go, yes, we are moving here, because they're setting the climate up to help that. So I put this out yesterday saying, oh, high-frequency trading, preset sell points by Goldman Sachs, that's the biggest in the world. They run it. They're the top people. They're on record. It's in the news that they had pre-sale settings. Though it's not their fault. We had preset settings. You set the computer. It's like saying, oh, the house is 70 degrees. I can't control it. It's a computer. You control the thermostat. So I said, oh, Goldman Sachs needs to be investigated. And others for setting the threshold very, very low. And by that, it barely drops. The threshold's very low to start mass selling. They had it on a hair trigger. Or you can look at the other way and say it was set very, very high at a hair trigger where there was any drop that happened. But I see it as low. If you want to set the threshold, we have to have a lot of drop. That's a high threshold. A low threshold is it barely drops, you start panic selling. Potato, patata, it depends on how you want to look at it. You know, it's the same thing. It's just different ways of looking at a glass, half full, half empty. So we know that happened. And we know they've been cheerleading for the market to go down, but because of incredible exuberance, they've not been able to do it. So the media attacked me and said, Jones claims it's a conspiracy and that there's some type of hanky-panky going on. We all know big banks and brokerage firms never do anything in the stock market. It's completely above board. But meanwhile, today, the financial writers and many others are coming out and agreeing with what I said yesterday, what Michael Savage said yesterday, that clearly this is an attack on Trump. Here it is from Michael Savage. It's on Infowars.com by Paul Joseph Watson. Michael Savage thinks stock market plunge is a deep state plot to destroy Trump. We'll play a clip of that, but see, here's just one clip I found this morning, July 21st of last year. Federal Reserve attempted to kill Trump economic boom with their policies of raising interest rates then and talking down the economy. And I said he used to get rid of Yellen and put his own person in. But the Federal Reserve's private. It does what it wants. Okay, it's a fourth branch of government above the law that's not governmental, in the words of Alan Greenspan. In fact, let's find that later. No rush, but he was on PBS NewsHour like 7 years ago, and he goes, well, the headline is, Alan Greenspan says the Federal Reserve is above the law. And he actually says it. No one can stop us. Not courts, not Congress, not the president, not the people. Since 1913, now over 100 years ago, we rule you. So here's Michael Savage, and then when I come back, we'll play the clip from July. But here's Dr. Savage.
The feds are doing this on purpose by running up interest rates to weaken Donald Trump, whose strongest calling card is the economy. Remember, Trump triumphed over Mueller and the nation last week with the release of that memo. Never mind what little Adam Schiff says. Adam Schiff is a fraud, a phony, an empty suit. Robert Hall doesn't even have a suit that would fit him. They're trying to destroy Trump's strongest card, which is the economy. Mueller has gone nowhere with his fake Russia investigation. Trump's stirring so-to speech last week was so great that even CBS admitted 75% of the people who watched it approved of it and loved it. So what happened right afterwards? The establishment, meaning the deep state, call it whatever you want, went into overdrive to destroy Trump or try to destroy him where he is strongest because they couldn't get him where they thought he was weakest. And so they're taking the market down. They're trying to hurt you. They are the enemies of the average American. Make no mistake about it. They're going for you. These people are so evil and so power drunk that they burn the nation to the ground rather than let Donald Trump live another day in office. Do you understand this?
Absolute, pure truth. 100% truth. Crystallized in a minute and a half, as only Dr. Savage can do it. And we're going to lay out all the proof. And now we predicted it and laid it all out on the other side. And they've bragged about doing this as well. Because remember, they're just going to buy it up when it's low and jack it back up later. But it hurts you and the economy. We'll be back. Stay with us. Ladies and gentlemen, we are back live broadcasting worldwide. I am your host, Alex Jones. We're going to be here for the next 3.5 hours. And, of course, the War Room's coming up with Owen Schroyer as well. We are witnessing premeditated, committed economic warfare against this country. If foreign governments and foreign empires are willing to take over countries and burn down whole cities and bomb entire nations for power and control, would they be willing to assassinate a president? Would they be willing to start a race war? Would they be willing to try to tank a stock market to kill a recovery when their whole global system is based on bringing down the nation state? Well, the answer is they wouldn't be willing. They would be committed to that, and they would be carrying exactly that out. And that's what's happened. And they think you're stupid. The private, run-for-profit Federal Reserve has raised interest rates more on President Trump and the American people in the last 13 months than it did in the entirety of 8 years of Barack Hussein Obama. They gave low interest rates to the establishment, but banks didn't give low interest rates to the citizens. Trump has instructed the banks to do so. The Federal Reserve has been bucking him, but many regional and national banks have been loaning, and that's why you've seen record new small company expansions and startups that we've ever seen, now even better than Ronald Reagan. So they've already raised it a bunch. Now they're raising it 3 more times in 2018. They announced that last Friday, and on the next trading day, the stock market fell thousands of points before rebounding a couple hundred points. And then I get up here on air and I talk about it, and mainstream media says it's a conspiracy theory because they think you're stupid. You've seen CNBC, you've seen MSNBC, you've seen the New York Times, all talk down the market, all talk down the low unemployment. CNN, all of them tell you that the economy really isn't good and that it's underlying bad and that it's all going to explode and it's all a big bubble. They've been living off the bubble for themselves and not letting you have any of the bubble. They've gotten even richer under Trump the last year. Bezos has made $20-something billion. But you notice he's been selling a lot of it and buying Whole Foods and buying newspapers and buying factories and buying, in fact, the headline was last week, Bezos bought more last week than he bought the previous year. The headline was, I saw a bunch of headlines, Bezos buying everything. Bezos buying everything he can get his hands on because he knew they were getting ready to start bringing the stock market down this week. His whole empire is built on $1.48 on every package he ships of taxpayer money, and almost all his employees are on food stamps. His whole system is about bringing us down. Now the Whole Foods workers are getting their pay cut and their hours increased and overtime taken away, and the food's not going to be really organic anymore, and they're shipping crap in, and the shelves are empty half the time, which is just on-time delivery. Driving workers are cry regularly, just like the Washington Post. They hailed him 2 years ago when he bought it as the leftist savior. Now they walk into board meetings and say, you all need to shut the bleep up. You're going to get your pay cut. A lot of you are going to be out on the street. Phase 1, we come in, we tell you everything's great. Phase 2, we gang rape you. Because I'm Bezos. I'm in league with Apple that's got the slave factories. But I'm trendy, and that's all that matters. As long as you act trendy, everything is A-OK. So you could see them all maneuvering last week, selling at the peak. And then, bloop, on Monday, ha, ha, ha. And then they're going to panic everything further and tell Trump, you don't start working with us and rolling over. We're going to do the one thing you don't want, and that's destroy America. Well, guess what? They're going to do it anyways. So, let's go out to break here with a clip. Federal Reserve attempting to kill Trump economic recovery. This was the 6-month anniversary of Trump being sworn in. And here is my warning that came exactly true. And, of course, we have them even admitting they're doing this. But in a mind game, then when you say something, they go, oh, no, we didn't do that. Here it is. Today is the 6-month anniversary of his inauguration and his announcement to kill the TPP, to renegotiate NAFTA and GATT, to kill the carbon tax, to control our borders, and he's delivered in a royal flush. But the headlines from CNN and the New York Times, the Washington Post, MSNBC, ABC, NBC, CBS is Trump doesn't get one piece of major legislation through. Trump's a failure. Trump's in shambles. Trump's under criminal investigation. And yes, he hasn't gotten any major legislation, meaning tax cuts or Obamacare repeal through, but a lot of other stuff that is actually major has gotten through, massive regulations cut, and he's gotten so much done via the executive branch because they were unconstitutionally doing most of their globalist agenda through it. He was able to turn that back on them and kill it, and then watch the economy go from sputtering and faltering and stalling, roaring back. And now, the Federal Reserve announces huge increases coming in the next few months to the previous increases of the amount of money you have to pay to borrow. And as the interest increases, it's a wet blanket trying to stop the American system that empires have been trying to stop for 242 years. This is an amazing time to be alive. And I just tell it like it is, ladies and gentlemen. Trump has delivered, and it is just over-the-top bizarre to see all these liars and scumbags sit there and spew their lies with a straight face because it is so over-the-top ridiculous. That's right. And we saw the leftist media celebrate and go, oh, look, the economy's going down. Trump was speaking in Ohio at a factory. He looks stupid. He's dumb. America's going down, down, down with America. Oh, but Trump's a Russian agent. He wants to hurt America. But we're cheering against America because we're the globalist scum. So the Dow Jones Industrial Average, to the great frustration of the globalist, is up 186 points from opening today. It's at 24,541, oscillating back and forth. Obviously, it was up last week at 26,000 in the middle of the week. But then the Fed said that they were going to raise interest rates. They gave their details on Friday. And on Monday, the market went down almost 2,000 points, the biggest single-day drop in the Dow Jones Industrial Average's history. It's still not a crash because it's gained close to 8,000 points since the president got in, or a 40% increase. So again, all of that is up on Infowars.com and Newswars.com as we speak. Now, let's get into President Trump's greatest truth yet. Because as the criminality of the globalists comes out, President Trump is really taking the gloves off with these people that believe they've captured America once and for good, and that believe that the huge populist free market awakening is only a death struggle, a death agony that the vampires will be able to sit on if enough of them sit on us like Lilliputians and keep us from getting back on our feet. But we have gotten back on our feet, and as more Americans wake up to that fact, we will reverse the trends that they have been engaged in. So, Trump's biggest truth yet: Democrats are like death, un-American, and treasonous. We're going to go to that clip in a moment. Trump turns up the heat on un-American Dems, silent during State of the Union. Can we call that treason? It certainly shows they're out to get the country. The MSNBC said, you can't have churches and you can't have family. We took that away from you. That's a bygone era. The state is your family. So all of it out in the open as the globalists admittedly plunge the stock market for full control. Let's go to the president.
But I said you have the lowest black unemployment in the history of our country. It was like, it was a game. You know, they play games. They were told, don't even make a facial movement. And I'm talking about you have the lowest Hispanic unemployment in the history of our country. This isn't me saying, this is the charts, the polls. We have the lowest in the history of our country. Dead silence, not a smile. In fact, there was one guy, when I said the lowest African-American unemployment, he was sort of clapping, like, who was that guy? He's a nice guy. He was a reverend. And he was, I wouldn't say it was exactly arousing, but he was putting his hands together. And I want to find out who he is. I'm going to send him a letter of thank you. And he was probably severely reprimanded. Don't you think, Rob? I think so, because he was the only one. So that means they would rather see Trump do badly, okay, than our country do well. That's what it means. It's very selfish. And it got to a point where I really didn't even want to look too much during the speech over to that side, because honestly, it was bad energy. No, it was bad energy. You're up there, you've got half the room going totally crazy, wild. They loved everything. They want to do something great for our country. And you have the other side, even on positive news, really positive news like that, they were like death and un-American. Un-American. Somebody said treasonous. I mean, yeah, I guess why not? You know, can we call that treason? Why not? I mean, they certainly didn't love our country very much. But you look at that, and it's really very, very sad. So we have to keep it going, because this country is turning, and it's turning much faster. And I said I'm going to do it, but it's happening faster than I thought.
And then I saw the New York Times, the Washington Post, CNN talking point. By the time I went and picked my kids up from school and got home yesterday, I went to home early yesterday. I was already planning to go get them after school and take them out to eat and stuff, and then go home and hang out. By the time I got home at about 6 o'clock, after picking them up and going to early dinner, there was the talking points in my office on the two computers. The same talking point. Embarrassing split screen. While Trump talks that the economy's up, it's plunging. And then it showed photos of him giving the speech in Ohio at the factory, and then it showed shots of the stock market going down. And it was just like growing up where you'd see ABC, CBS, and NBC all with the same teleprompter news in the same order for 30 minutes every night. And it'd be the same ads a lot of times during the breaks, totally programmed. And it was the same deal. Trump's embarrassed. He's talking up the economy, but it's not good. Even though you have the job startups and the wages going up and the tax cuts and the bonuses, they go, oh, well, a lot of blacks are out of the workforce, so that's why it's the lowest unemployment ever. No, you look at the index, those working are at the highest index since they set up the Labor Bureau statistics, and the wages are much higher, which is the argument of the Federal Reserve to raise interest rates, saying wages are too high, that's going to cause inflation. When we all know they're not too high, they're still way too low because of how inflation is. Let me tell you, I'm not a rich guy, but I got some money, and I go buy groceries and stuff, and I'm like, it hurts. I'm like, how does an average family do this? Inflation's been incredible. Trump's going, well, we're in inflation because of globalism. Might as well give them pay raises. At least they can, buy some more stuff, because he's damned if he does. He's damned if he doesn't. And it made me really angry, because then I said, okay, they're not all rooting against the economy. And I kept looking and looking and remembering back how they kept saying, oh, the stock market's going to go down. Oh, these factory jobs aren't going to come back. Oh, you'll never get to 3% growth rate. And it's just how they're squatting on this country, trying to hold us down, while they cheerlead and say the Chinese century's here, and China's invincible, and China's unstoppable, and it's the future. Let me tell you something. Paul Watson was married to a Chinese lady for about 5 years. Nice lady. I met her a couple times. Nice lady. But the point is that he went over there many times to hang out with her family. And he said even in the wealthy areas, even the rural areas, just black smog comes by and hits you in the face. And that's why they wear masks. And there's incredible corruption. And there'll be dead bodies just rotting on the side of the road. And, and people crapping on the side of the street. And no one helps you if you get hurt. And they sell political dissidents organs because their crime is secretly having a church, or secretly, doing feng shui or any type of other, that's Japanese, any type of Buddhist operation. It's just crazy. And the left doesn't say a word about it now. They don't care. It's no big deal. But Trump's really starting to become himself now behind the scenes. I told you he likes Christianity because the energy, he feels the spirit of it. And you heard him, oh, the energy was really bad over there. The energy over here was really great. That's what Trump's really all about, is energy. And he doesn't like seeing poor, starving, dumb people. He doesn't like seeing no opportunity. He likes seeing people working hard, being empowered, being successful. And that spirit of Trump is antithetical to the globalists. It's the opposite of who they are. All right, we're going to go to break. I'm going to come back and get into huge news. Where did you hear first that the real crimes committed at the Justice Department were paying off their family members at Fusion GPS? Congress talked about it last night. When we come back, I'm going to read the news, and then I'm going to give you from December of last year, 3 months ago, where I said it was the key to everything. Just pointing out why they hate us, why they say we're the #1 enemy to be shut down in congressional hearings, why Google internally says it, why foreign governments want to shut down, why the communist Chinese openly want to shut down, because we got their number. I told you years ago that the University of Texas is run by the communist Chinese. 2 weeks ago, it was the front page, even the Washington Post had to admit it. Chinese intelligence was caught running the university, basically, and just jacking all the DARPA data. Stay with us. Tomorrow's news today. You're listening to The Alex Jones Show. I'm your host, Alex Jones. I call it InfoWars Live, but on syndicated radio or on the satellite receiver. It's The Alex Jones Show, because that's been the name of it for 23 years. Again, I'm Alex Jones, your host. Thank you so much for joining us. Infowars.com, newswars.com are the main sites. We are witnessing the globalists openly trying to plunge our stock market, the Federal Reserve raising rates, knowing it would do that, then hyping it, and then having their trading systems preset to begin to lower the value. Now, we have a lot of news coming in that we're going to be breaking down as it unfolds. But here's a headline. The Federal Reserve may secretly want to sink the record-breaking stock market. And that's from The Street. The Street, one of the even big establishment publications, and that's Peter Schiff saying that. We'll play some of that video coming up at the start of the next hour. And Peter Schiff is going to be joining us on air. And he was on with us just 2 weeks ago and was predicting all of this. But he's saying it's bad if they try to crash it on their own, but it's healthy because bubbles are bad. Yeah, but then the Chinese and everybody else have their bubbles. So that is coming up. At the bottom of the next hour, you definitely do not want to miss that. Now, I want to get to the latest that is unfolding with the whole situation with Mueller and the ridiculous Russian probe and all the rest of it, and the media trying to say, the controlled corporate press trying to say it's treason if you even expose the fact that they've got fraudulent evidence that are engaged in fraud and they're trying to feed the public fruit of the poison tree and that it's all based on lies. So we're going to be going to all of that in just a moment. But I wanted to review the crimes that have been committed on the face of it, prima facie. That means you catch somebody with the dead body and there's a witness that saw them stabbing them with the knife, or you catch somebody in the act of shooting somebody in front of a sports stadium, it's prima facie. And you have Justice Department officials giving money directly to their spouses, because there's multiple ones, that then quarterback creating the fake dossier and giving it a fancy French name. So everybody is wowed about it. Notice Congress, Nunes didn't call it the dossier or the Bible. He just called it a memo, a FISA memo off what they did with the FISA court, the proof of the entire fraud and how they lied to the FISA court, which is another serious crime. So that's coming up in a moment. But briefly, we've got all these new initiatives that I've been so busy, I haven't even promoted. Things like Patriot Points at InfoWarsStore.com. When you go to InfoWarsStore.com and buy products, you get 5% off all the other additional purchases on your next purchase for every dollar you spend, which can be substantive. you're buying high-quality water filtration, air filtration, supplements monthly, that just in your account, you've got, the high-tech, best type of shopping cart out there. It then builds up to very, very substantive amounts of money. And so just remember, though, you've got to click Patriot Points when you're there shopping, as you can anonymously shop or you can create your account with one click. And you can, again, get those Patriot Points. So be sure at InfoWarsStore.com to check those out. Also, you get additional 10% off on all orders when you sign up for auto ship and then reship every 15, every 30, every 60, every 90, or every 6 months. You can cancel for free with one click. So to explain, you can go in and sign up for auto ship for, say, DNA Force Plus, which is Cell Force, but it's coming out under the term DNA Force Plus, or Brain Force, or Body's Ultimate Turmeric Formula, or Pollen Block, or BioTrue Selenium, or Secret 12, or the Real Red Pill, or Colloidal Silver, or Super Blue fluoride-free toothpaste that is fortified with high-quality colloidal silver and iodine. People love it. So good for the gums. Knockout, the great sleep aid, vitamin mineral fusion, Caveman, Floralife, incredible probiotic, Prostagard, same price as other saw palmetto products that are great, proven to help your prostate and other glands, but with a bunch of other stuff that also turbocharges it for less money. You get an additional 10% off at checkout, and then you can cancel right after checkout if you want. It's just to habituate, and I do this too, because I have the warehouse a few miles away. I can go get whatever I want, whenever I want, and I'll still run out of things like Knockout, or I'll run out of things like Secret 12. I'll run out of stuff like X2, the high-quality pure iodine that's so good. And then I'll be forgetting to go get it. So I just auto-ship to my house. My wife asked me about a year ago, she said, because that's when we got married, a little over a year ago, she said, honey, why are we getting InfoWars stuff from Austin? Why are you buying your own stuff? And I said, well, I have to go sign it out of inventory anyways. It's a big hassle. Or somebody's got to bring it to me over here at the other office. And I said, so what if I'm putting money back into the company? It's here, isn't it? She said, no, yeah, you're right. I said, you were complaining that I wasn't bringing home enough Knockout because you love it. I said, 8 bottles, sweetheart. By the way, about a year and a half later, about 14 months later, we finally just killed that. And again, I didn't sign up for auto ship on that. I just had a whole bunch sent to me. But I need to do the auto ship. In fact, I was just remembering, why am I ordering online? I need to auto ship myself. See, so something in there is on auto ship. I think it's what the kids take. Secret 12, the high quality vitamin B12. The point is, InfoWarsStore.com, InfoWarsLife.com, or 888-253-3139. And for a limited time, it is selling out in the next week or so. Cell Force is stronger bio, PQQ, CoQ10, more of it. It's basically souped up DNA Force at a lower price. We were able to negotiate with the top organic producer. And Grip said, listen, we're already putting out DNA Force Plus that was supposedly you're going to have even more in it for a lower price, but I can't even negotiate stuff like you did. I'll stop making it. This new firm you've got is great. It's a great formula. That's how classy Group is. So it is 53% off, known as Cell Force. It's really going to be called DNA Force Plus when we remake it. It's being remade right now. We should get more, we think, in probably April. But I still want to discount it at this great price for you. Leading competitors are up to $300 or more. Medical doctors sell it. People think they're getting a good deal. They go in, oh my gosh, it's CoQ10, it's BioPQQ, the actual organically produced type. You can't call it organic, but it's not synthetic, okay? So it's organically produced. It's not synthetic, but you can't call it organic because it's produced in a laboratory using organic means, using bacteria. So the point is that the Japanese developed it. It's amazing. Just the CoQ10 alone, BioPQQ. It's been all the rage for a decade for a reason. This is the strongest, lowest price formula you're going to find out there. They've got, again, 50, 60, 70 bucks for little bitty plastic bottles of just BioPQQ or CoQ10 that's synthetic, and the evidence shows doesn't absorb at all, if any. And it's the same price as this. It's a big old horse pill in powdered form, incredibly absorbable, with a bunch of other key compounds in it that help supercharge the absorption. And it's got 5 stars, even though this is a brand new product. Cell Force, again, to be relabeled when the next deal comes out as DNA Force Plus. People like that name. I did it not to step on Grip's toes. InfoWarsStore.com, InfoWarsLife.com, or 888-253-3139. Pollen Block. where they feed the Japanese quail a special secret diet that's been proven and documented to massively reduce seasonal discomfort, the stuff from the pollen, all the stuff in the air, the dust. Pollen block, people are loving it, getting great reviews, because this is a known product and procedure for decades. We just have a high-quality, concentrated one at a very low price. Infowarsstore.com for your pollen block, and that's how you fund the operation. Please also fund our local affiliates by supporting their sponsors or becoming a sponsor, or tithing to the local station. You know, $10 a month, $100 a month, whatever you can. We're in a war. They're trying to shut us down. Despite that, we're having some big victories, but it's quite a fight we're in. Okay. Second hour with Mr. Schiff coming up is going to be extremely important. He's saying exactly what I'm saying, that this could be an inside operation. Well, it is, clearly. You could see it, and you can see the Democrats celebrating it in the news. That's really the big news, is they're out there celebrating it. I also intend to open the phones up, but I'm going to get into the media finally picking up not just the illegality of McCabe getting $500,000 for his wife from Hillary, cash, but Fusion GPS from Orr at the Justice Department. Stay with us.
The feds are doing this on purpose by running up interest rates to weaken Donald Trump, whose strongest calling card is the economy. Remember, Trump triumphed over Mueller and the nation last week with the release of that memo. Never mind what little Adam Schiff says. Adam Schiff is a fraud, a phony, an empty suit. Robert Hall doesn't even have a suit that would fit him. They're trying to destroy Trump's strongest card, which is the economy. Mueller has gone nowhere with his fake Russia investigation. Trump's stirring so-to speech last week was so great that even CBS admitted 75% of the people who watched it approved of it and loved it. So what happened right afterwards? The establishment, meaning the deep state, call it whatever you want, went into overdrive to destroy Trump or try to destroy him where he is strongest, because they couldn't get him where they thought he was weakest. And so they're taking the market down. They're trying to hurt you. They are the enemies of the average American. Make no mistake about it, they're going for you. These people are so evil and so power drunk that they burn the nation to the ground rather than let Donald Trump live another day in office. Do you understand this?
The globalists are so power drunk, they'd rather burn the nation to the ground than let Donald Trump spend one more day in the Oval Office. Total truth. I don't hardly ever play clips twice, but I already played that last hour. I had to play it again because it's so true. I just got poleaxed during that last 2-minute break in between the first and second hour by information I just learned from one of our investigative journalists that I have to go to a few clips at this point, and I'm going to have to come back to break the news that we're about to break here on air that is devastating. Devastating to Hollywood. Devastating. Devastating. And, I mean, it's rare that news is so over the top that I even have trouble dealing with it. It's just these people. It'll be breaking in the next 10 minutes here on air, and then at Infowars.com and Newswars.com. And it makes me sick. But it also is very positive at the same time to be exposing this evil. Let's play a clip back from December 14th where I said Fusion GPS could have been trying to buy access to DOJ with payments to an official's wife. Well, it's kind of the reverse. That's what Judicial Watch and that's what Daily Caller's saying. It's all one group. She went to work there, and then the money was paid. Yes, to her, to Orr. That's how Orr made the payment to his wife, to himself, and then it's all one big incestuous relationship. So, yes, that's true, but it goes both ways. So here's a clip of where I broke that down, then we'll go to break and come back, and then I'll try to compose myself. Stay with us. And then, of course, they had the hearings yesterday on Wednesday where he's in the meeting quarterbacking how to bring down Trump during the election and saying, don't panic, we're going to defeat him. And then they run the whole fake Fusion GPS deal, and they got the Justice Department paying millions to the wife of the head of the Justice Department Russia unit. I mean, total collusion. This is as bad as Hitler sitting in judgment of the Nazis in Nuremberg. I mean, this is, whoa. This is so over the top arrogant, belligerent, hubris-filled, chutzpah-filled, bravado-filled. The arrogance, the recklessness, the fake confidence that criminals and scum and betas engage in when betas finally get in a man's world and get together as a group of betas and start engaging in criminal activity. They just do things alphas would never do. I keep learning that it's betas who are the ones that get together and commit the really big crimes. And they're all a bunch of chicken neck, anti-American trash. I mean, you read their emails, their text. I mean, these are people that have a big, giant you-know-what for America and just hate flyover country and hate bitter clingers and hate Christians. Ladies and gentlemen, we are back live. This happens only every once in a while that a story so big hits my desk from our incredible investigative journalist that it gives me a migraine headache. And I'm not complaining. I instantly, within about 2 minutes of looking at this information, got a splitting headache, a vision blurring headache. And I only have migraines maybe twice a year. Because it's so horrible, and because it just confirms everything, you think I'd be jumping up and down happy. No, I'm not happy. And then I already had a stack of news on this subject to hit today. And I'm being persecuted by these people behind the scenes, and I can't get into it yet. And I'm not complaining. It's just we're right about this. And they're not going to give us quarter. For folks that aren't into old-fashioned history, quarter means you get in a fight with somebody, it's to the death. They're not going away. They're not stopping. And they really are as bad as we thought they were. In fact, they're worse. So I'm not ready to go to this at this point. And we are going over it to remove some of the profanities in it. And then I'm going to air it in the next segment. So that's coming up in a minute. I taste blood in my mouth. You know what I'm talking about? Copper right now, as a parent. And I know what it is. It's my natural inclination. If I was in a village 10,000 years ago and there were people like this, they wouldn't be doing too well real fast. And I'm not somebody that shoots my mouth off. Everybody knows that. We're changing the world. And I don't even like talking like this. It's just at a certain point, it never ends. You know, I haven't gotten to 1/10 the bombshells yet today. These are the type of bombshells that are on Infowars.com. Just sensational beyond knowing. Adam Schiff, the guy leading Take America Down operations, up to his eyeballs with the Russians, caught trying to cover up and obstruct criminal investigations of Hillary, caught trying to block the criminal activity of Fusion GPS. He's now come out and says Russians promote the Second Amendment so Americans would kill each other. That's right. Adam Schiff, the Second Amendment is a Russian conspiracy. The stock market up's a Russian conspiracy. Taking care of the veterans is a Russian conspiracy. Having the biggest small business startups in modern history's a Russian conspiracy. Having the lowest black and Hispanic unemployment ever recorded is a conspiracy of the Russians. No, you are the conspiracy of Hollywood and the whole stinking thing. And we've got the reports coming up that the Federal Reserve may secretly want to sink the record-breaking stock market. Oh, that's the street. I said that last night. And now you got CNBC and everybody else saying it. We're going to play that video when Schiff comes on with us at the bottom of the hour. And again, I just keep showing you how we say it first, and that's why they fear us and why they hate us. Because I'm not a follower. I don't sit around and wait for somebody else to do it. Now, before we go any further, and I play some of these clips, I'm going to play these clips back to back because I got to go work on some things during the break and just get my head together before I come back and cover this. This big breaking news is going to break in about 8-9 minutes at Infowars.com and Newswars.com and PrisonPlanet.com. But boy, did Trump say it right when he said Democrats are like death. All those that hate, mean, love death. That's their cult. That's their spirit. That's what Christ said. They're like death. Un-American and treasonous. Like Savage said, Total Veritas, the insiders want to burn it all down if they can't control it. And Trump's trying to give us the keys back. I respect you. I believe in you. You're amazing. America's amazing. I love the energy of America. I'm in the cult of America. The globalists go, he's mentally ill. He's crazy. What, betting on the best horse the world ever saw? No, I think he'd be crazy to join you death lovers who love communist China. It's like a freakazoid science fiction nightmare that killed 80+ million of its own people and kills hundreds of thousands a year conservatively right now, and it keeps people in cages DNA tested to sell their organs that did nothing. That's lovers of death right there. So rolling over to you is like death. So we're going to play Adam Schiff, Russians promoting the Second Amendment so Americans will kill each other. And then I'm going to play the rest of the clip. I didn't get to all of it. Flashback, they're now saying go after Orr for giving his wife millions of dollars from the Justice Department as a type of double-sided payoff that you can only do if your husband and wife doing something like that. It's just it's a payoff. It's a kickback. It's unbelievable. Let's go ahead and play both those clips back to back, then we'll come back with a bombshell.
But we can see, for example, on Facebook, so graphically what I was mentioning earlier, the multiple aims of the Russians.
No, no proof, no nothing. You just lie. You just say this. Keep going.
The content that was clearly anti-Hillary, and you had the content.
Oh, clearly. Hit pause. I'm sorry. All anti-Hillary stuff was a Russian bot. That's all lies. It's been proven to be lies. He just lies to people. Here, go back to Jeff Bezos's Washington Post. Let's go back to the Washington Post. Here.
But even the bigger quantity of content that was being pushed through social media was just content designed to pit us against each other, to exploit our divisions.
Oh, the race and all that stuff like you do?
Of course, they, as you have seen, they parroted Black Lives Matter to try to broaden the racial divide.
You guys funded that.
Fascinatingly, they also trumpeted the Second Amendment. Apparently, the Russians are very big fans of our Second Amendment. They don't particularly want a Second Amendment of their own.
Oh, yes, they do.
But they're really glad that we have one. The Russians would be thrilled if we were doing nothing but killing each other every day, and sadly, we are.
All right, here I am getting in December what's now breaking. Go ahead. Then, of course, they had the hearings yesterday on Wednesday where he's in the meeting quarterbacking how to bring down Trump during the election and saying, don't panic, we're going to defeat him. And then they run the whole fake fusion GPS deal, and they got the Justice Department paying millions to the wife of the head of the Justice Department Russia unit. I mean, total collusion. This is as bad as Hitler sitting in judgment of the Nazis in Nuremberg. I mean, this is, whoa. This is so over the top, arrogant, belligerent, hubris-filled, chutzpah-filled, bravado-filled. The arrogance, the recklessness, the fake confidence that criminals and scum and betas engage in when betas finally get in a man's world and get together as a group of betas and start engaging in criminal activity. They just do things alphas would never do. I keep learning that it's betas who are the ones that get together and commit the really big crimes. And they're all a bunch of chicken neck, anti-American trash. I mean, you read their emails, their text. I mean, these are people that have a big, giant you-know-what for America and just hate flyover country and hate bitter clingers and hate Christians and just hate everything. I mean, this is a group of garbage. But you've got to be garbage. If people are in your business, which is our country, robbing it, they're going to hate the people they're robbing. It's what criminals do. They always demonize who they're robbing. And they always think they're invincible until they get caught robbing. But it gets worse. You've got the FBI giving millions of dollars with McCabe directing it behind the scenes during the campaign against Trump in emails and text messages saying, don't worry, we're going to stop Trump. Alex Jones here, back live with a piece of news that makes me particularly angry. In fact, it makes me taste copper in my mouth, and that happens very, very rarely unless I get mad at a very deep, fundamental level. And then I ask myself, why did this piece of news trigger me so hard? Well, you're about to learn for yourself. Because I have a stack of news today that ties into this same subject. And then when I listened to what this individual had to say and read the transcript as well, in the Kit Daniels article on Infowars.com and Newswars.com, it was so sickening to hear how he was talking. And I'm talking about Quentin Tarantino defended Roman Polanski's pedophilic rape of a drugged 13-year-old girl and said sex with a 13-year-old girl isn't rape. And he was, of course, best buddies with Weinstein. And the two partied together for years, and he financed almost all of his race-baiting, sex war films. So there you go. Infowars.com. And it shocked even Howard Stern in an interview from 2003. The full interview is posted on Infowars.com in the article. But remember, we have Meryl Streep saying Roman Polanski shouldn't be in jail for raping a 13-year-old, or then he got in trouble for Europe for other stuff, and they finally got him. Before he was in jail, a few years before that, she was, in the early 2000s, giving standing ovations when he was still winning Best Director from the Academy. And he was known for all of this. And there's the reports of all the rape by Weinstein and the underage girls as well. But don't worry. As you're going to hear from Quentin Tarantino, it's all okay, even though he introduced us to images of men raping men in Pulp Fiction and made it cute and funny. And what gimps were and sex slaves in boxes and all this, you know, fun stuff. If you get kidnapped and put in a box, you'll think it's cool too. Where's the gimp? I think he's sleeping. You'll just have to wake him up now, won't you? And so in real life, that's who Tarantino is, it looks like, is Zed. And you know what happens to old Zed in Tarantino's movie? So pipe hitters come along. So here we are, ladies and gentlemen, with him saying, oh, she was 13. It was consensual. Oh, because she was drugged up, kind of like a 20-year-old woman, you drug her up? So here they are pushing this whole movement, and he's got Uma Thurman coming out, who knew about all this forever, too. They had her crashing in cars. They spit on her. Tarantino's defending that now, but now that she's not a big star anymore, she wants to get 10 more minutes of fame. You should have talked about it back at the time, lady. That's all I'm saying. I'm not comparing you to monsters like Weinstein or Tarantino, but, man, let me tell you, I know a lot of folks from Hollywood. Tarantino's lived in Austin for 16 years. He doesn't like me. He's come right over and told me to my face. Arrogant old cuss. I won't tell the rest of the story because it's too unbelievable, but let's go ahead now, ladies and gentlemen. It was at the French Connection when the director was there. Also the director of The Exorcist, same guy. It was there. Back when the Alamo Draft House was one movie theater downtown. It was there. Let's leave it right there. Let's go ahead and go to him on Howard Stern. And you're hearing about this here. Other folks obviously knew about this, but no one's reported it. Now we're reporting it at Infowars.com. Here he is defending the rape anally of a 13-year-old girl. Here it is.
Exactly. All right, you got to explain this. I've been dying to get a hold of you for this reason. When Gary Garver, our reporter out in Hollywood, interviewed you, here's what you said. I got to ask you about this. Okay. This I don't understand. Your movie I understand. This I don't. You ready? Yeah. Okay, here we go.
Hey, Quentin, how you doing, man?
Hey.
How's it going, man?
Pretty good.
Nice to meet you. What have you done to make the world a better place?
I don't know. What do you think I've done?
Cool movies.
Oh, well, I'll stand with that.
Pulp Fiction's awesome.
Yeah.
Hey, were you happy when Roman Polanski won the Oscar?
Yeah, that was pretty cool, actually, yeah.
What's so great about a rapist being the recipient of Hollywood's highest honor?
I don't consider him a rapist.
All right, that's the one. How can you defend... See, I don't understand this. How come Hollywood embraces This madman, this director who raped a 13-year-old.
He didn't rape a 13-year-old. It was statutory rape.
Yeah, all right.
Well, that's not quite the same thing. All right?
Come on.
Good pause.
Enough said.
Back it up 10 seconds. Robin and Stern are absolutely right. If you're 16 and you got a 20-year-old boyfriend, it's creepy, but it's statutory. If you're 18 and she's 15, no. You're a 40-something-year-old guy with a drugged-up 13-year-old having sex with her until she bleeds all over the place, and you grabbed her and you drugged her. Let's go back. Let's go back to this creep.
This madman, this director who raped a 13-year-old.
He didn't rape a 13-year-old. It was statutory rape.
Yeah, all right.
Well,
That's not quite the same thing. All right?
come on.
Enough said.
It's not statutory rape. You know, he had sex with a minor. All right, that's not rape. To me, when you use the word rape, all right, you're talking about violent, throwing them down. It's like one of the most violent crimes in the world. You can't throwing the word rape around is like throwing the word racist around. All right, you know, it just doesn't apply to everything that people use it for. All right, you know, he was guilty of having sex with a minor. All right,
That she didn't want to have.
no, that was not the case at all. She wanted to have it.
Well,
and dated
the transcripts.
dated the guy, and
She was 13.
and found out. Well, by the way, we're talking about America's morals. We're not talking
let's
about
stop
the
right
morals
there.
in Europe and everything.
Oh, in Europe and everywhere else where pedophilia is kind of cool and underground, and, you know, they can grab your kid out of the backyard, it's okay, as long as you put them on 5 hits of X. I've got a 13-year-old daughter. And I got a 10-year-old daughter now. And I got a 9-month-old daughter, and I catch anybody touching them, you're dead. I don't care what your morals are, Tarantino. You're nothing but a thug wimp. You're going to get it. You got that? You're in a lot of trouble politically. So the rest of the audio and everything's up there. He goes on to defend it. It's sick. But let's go out to break with a standing ovation for Roman Polanski that year. And then a couple years later, he got arrested for similar stuff in Europe and is still in jail now, and they're all sad about it. These are the same people. She says, in Kramer versus Kramer, famous actor slapped her too hard. She'd agreed it was part of the acting, and she says she's traumatized to cover up for what she is, an enabler, just like Oprah Winfrey. Let's go to the tape.
Goes for Roman Polanski, for the pianist.
And all of them stand up. Harrison Ford. This looks like a total nerd twit. Bunch of fake nobodies. Oh, there you got all the rest of the people. Yay! We grab little girls, and we drug them up, and we rape them.
The Academy congratulates Roman Polanski.
Let's see, in Europe, or in Harvey Weinstein, when he's on the airplane with the Lolita Express with Mr. Epstein and Bill Clinton, going to known areas where they got 10-year-old girls that were kidnapped. And, you know, sometimes they end up in the ocean. Hey, it's consensual. It's not rape when you kidnap kids and take them to an island to be slaves. Or you take them to some sheik's harem. All right? Chaining little girls up and raping them for years so you blow their heads off is no big deal. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Well, he was on with us January 19th. That's about 2 weeks ago. And I wasn't surprised this morning. He doesn't usually contact us to come on. We contact him to come on. But a little bit of a triumphant return because he was predicting any time the markets would have multi-thousand-point corrections. We ought to dig that video up. I'd forgotten to tell the crew. He was on the street last night and other TV channels breaking it down. But he did add the point that I agree with. I mean, it is the rate hikes that are doing this. So the Federal Reserve may secretly want to sink the record-breaking stock market. Well, that's definitely what Dr. Michael Savage thinks. That's what I said in July, what I said in December. We've already played those clips here. So all I'm saying is, can't America have its bubble too? But as Schiff has said, it'll just implode at one point or another. The question is, are we here yet? And why would they want to precipitate that? We're going to him of Euro Pacific Capital here in just a moment. But briefly, we're about to end a bunch of big specials at InfoWarsStore.com. We have the very best water filtration, the very best air filtration. We have a great Trump Pinch 2020 limited edition new shirt. The others sold out. Only get it for 1 month. And again, a clear vision for the future. It is a collector shirt, one run. We also have Pollen Block that's totally natural, that has the Japanese quail fed a special diet. It's proprietary and secret. And then they don't know why, but it absolutely really helps with the seasonal distress the pollen, the things that obviously upset so many people out there. When I forget to take it, I really, really notice here in Austin, Texas, known as the capital of allergies. And I wanted to come out with something that even cost less but had more bio-PQQ and CoQ10 in it, and we made some bigger connections, and some of the prices fell in the organically produced formulas. Again, you can't call it organic. It's organically produced by bacteria. It's not the synthetic type. But the point is that it is the purest, best form out there. Leading competitors, $300, $200, you name it. It's usually a great deal at $100. It's called DNA Force. Well, we've now named it Cell Force to get around some contracts so that we could go even lower on the price. But then when I negotiated with the folks, they said, go ahead and use DNA Force, as that's your branded name. Just call it Plus. So it's going to be called DNA Force Plus as soon as this sells out. This is an introductory offer on DNA Force Plus known as Cell Force. Concentrated, organically produced, CoQ10, bio-PQQ, and more. This is the ultimate formula, ladies and gentlemen. And it is 50+% off at InfoWarsStore.com. Technically 53% off the already lowered price on the retail. Go read the reviews for it yourself. Okay. And again, your purchases of the products make everything we do here possible. We've got the Real Red Pill, I should add, that is a multivitamin, multi-mineral with another key compound that is seen by the FDA as a steroid, but a natural one that is the precursor to all steroids, that if you don't have it, you can't produce them. So it's seen as healthy and seen as grass by the FDA, which means safe. And so it's in there. It's the Real Red Pill. It takes about a week to kick in. And let me tell you, it's amazing. So check that out, InfoWarsStore.com. Okay. Going back now to the man who back on January 19th of this year predicted here on this broadcast that it was imminent, a major stock market correction of multi-thousand points. No need to go play the clip. Many of you heard it. For the time constraints, we'll just go right to him. I may get to it after he leaves us and just tag it on. So when we post this later, people can see that. But the Federal Reserve may secretly want to sink the record-breaking stock market. That is a quote here, and that's out of thestreet.com. He was on MSNBC, CNBC talking about it. I don't know the Fed has much love for Trump, he said, adding that the Fed had the markets back during the Obama administration. Maybe the Fed would be happy to see the bear market that could be blamed on Trump. Schiff thinks the markets could easily correct 20%. That's what he said 2 weeks ago. So joining us right now is the man that predicted it. So why is this happening? You know more since last night, obviously. What's really going on?
Well, as I've been saying, and excuse my voice, I've had got a cold the other day, but hold on. Interest rates have been rising, right? The yield on the long bond has been, I got to take a drink.
It's okay. Well, you look great even if your voice is gone. We all know how it is this time of year.
I just did an interview. I don't have my voice.
I understand. Peter Schiff of Europac.com joins us.
But so interest rates have been rising. The markets have been ignoring this. And I said, look, eventually the markets can't ignore it. Why are rates going up? It's not the Fed hiking rates. It's bond prices falling. Why is that happening? It's happening because the budget deficits and the trade deficits are skyrocketing. We got a trade deficit today, December deficit, biggest in 9 years. If you take out oil, the biggest trade deficit we've ever had in 1 month as a country. I mean, trade deficits are exploding. And when the tax cuts were passed, that shined a light on the massive deficits that are going to be needed to finance these tax cuts. Plus, Trump is talking about infrastructure spending. That money has to be borrowed. They have a budget deal now they're doing. They're going to include pork barrel spending for the Democrats and the Republicans. They're throwing all fiscal discipline out the window. We are about to flood the world with treasury bonds. Who is going to buy these bonds? The Fed is saying they're not going to buy any. The Fed is saying they're actually going to sell bonds, that they're going to let their balance sheet shrink. The last time we had $1 trillion a year budget deficit, the Fed was doing $85 billion of QE a month. Now they're saying we're going to do the opposite of that. So bonds are falling, and that's going to bring down the stock market. It's going to bring down the economy, because the only thing that's been propping us up has been very cheap money, very low interest rates. You take that away, and everything comes toppling down. You know, the danger for Trump is it happens while he's on the job.
Peter Schiff, it looks like what you're saying here, with a great track record of predicting things accurately and you know, raising billions for your investors, that there's two things. Trump is massively pumping money into the world economy in an attempt to turn things back on. But at the same, so that you could say is a problem historically. But then also the Federal Reserve is now changing policies where they put up with this under Obama, but they've signaled, oh, we're not going to buy any of our treasuries like we did with Obama, and we're going to raise interest rates, leaving Trump out in the cold, a true double cross.
Well, it's not that this would be positive. What the Federal Reserve did under Obama was not good for the country. We would have been much better off had we done no quantitative.
No, I understand that, but they're changing their policy for Trump, as you said. Well, then let me ask it this way. I mean, repeating and expanding on what you said last night on the street, and what you said on CNBC about the Federal Reserve having an out for the president. Please give us your take on that.
Well, when I made those comments, and they were a while back, actually, I said that I believed that had Hillary Clinton won, while Janet Yellen was the Fed chairman, I don't believe we would have got all those rate hikes. I think the Fed would have been much more cautious about raising rates when if Hillary had won. But since Trump had won, I think they went forward with those rate hikes, even though the economic data didn't support it. In fact, despite what everybody's talking about, if you look at the data, right, GDP growth last year was not strong. In fact, it's probably going to come out weaker than the average that we had in Obama's second term. Job growth in the last year is the slowest it's been since 2010. We don't really have a strong economy, but we have a lot of debt. And so now that Powell is coming in, I mean, Powell has been appointed by Trump. We'll see if he is going to give in to some political pressure, which ultimately is not good for the country. To just print money to try to paper this over is not a good thing. But I think if the Fed has to rescue the markets and rescue the economy with another round of quantitative easing, and obviously, too, it's going to embarrass Trump if the Fed has to reverse course because the economy is a mess and the stock market is tanking now that he's already claimed credit for it. But if the Fed does that again, it is not going to end well. I think it's going to cause a dollar crisis. I think it's going to cause a sovereign debt crisis. I don't think the Fed can do for Trump what it did for Obama. I think they're out of bullets. I think that next time they do QE, it's going to be a fatal overdose.
Okay, stay there, please. Let's walk through this on the other side with the head of EuroPacificCapital.com on the other side and look at the bad side of all this if he's correct. And so far, 2 weeks ago, he did call it. Peter Schiff is here with us again. I'm Alex Jones. Spread the live links. If you're listening to local radio, spread those links on local TV. Tell folks tune in, and we will drill down into this in the next segment or two. We got them on a little bit late, so you can stay for a few more segments. You know, here's my thinking. I know they propped up the stock market and gave the elites all this free interest money and did all this for 8 years. They plunged the market, you know, right whenever the election was happening to get Obama in 2008. Schiff had predicted all that. And then I'm just wanting America to have a chance. I know China's got big bubbles. Europe has bubbles. And I get what Schiff's fundamentally saying is accurate. All I'm saying is, what is the alternative? Well, we're going to talk about that some with him in a moment. And he's right. He said this back in September, but they were re-airing it last night. Drudge had it up, so I was taking it as if he said it about last night. He was predicting it back on September 19th. So let's go ahead and play a clip from that interview that's up on Infowars.com, the full 9-minute interview. Here's about a minute and a half, and then we'll actually go to Mr. Schiff to break down what happened yesterday, what's happening now, and what he sees about to happen. Here it is.
The Fed wouldn't let the market go down when Obama was president. They certainly didn't want it to go down before the election because they wanted to put Hillary Clinton into the Oval Office after Obama. So they had the markets back. There was this put. But what if the put expired with Donald Trump? I don't know if the Fed has much love for Trump. And now that Trump has put his brand on this stock market and this economy, maybe the Fed is happy to allow a bear market that can be blamed on Trump.
You're calling the Fed political, which is certainly a valid argument. A lot of people are saying that. But the Fed also had a recession in 2009 to deal with. So they needed those stimulative measures then to deal with that.
Well, I have no doubt that they will come back with the same stimulus once this recession is fully underway and blamed on President Trump, even though it's not his fault. It's simply the mess that he inherited from Obama. But the Fed did not have to do the type of economic stimulus that it did in 2009, 2010. That's why the economy never healed. That's why we're in worse trouble today than we were back then. And remember, the Federal Reserve created the housing bubble. They're the reason we had a financial crisis. It was their economic policy that began early in the Bush era. You know, when we bursted the dot.
All right, now let's go to Mr. Schiff himself. That, again, is from late last year. But it sounds like you've soured some to Trump. You're saying he's kind of jumped on the bandwagon here, and that he's basically repeating what happened before. But the Federal Reserve, it looks like, is ready to abandon him, unlike Obama.
Well, you know, first of all, just recently I was talking about an 87-style stock market crash. I in my own podcast on Friday, I said, will Black Monday come early this year? Because I was comparing this year to 1987. Because what happened in 87 is we had soaring trade deficit and budget deficits that were pushing down the dollar and up interest rates, and that led to the the stock market crash. So more recently, I've been worried about a big drop in the dollar.
You called it 2 weeks ago here to interrupt. Yeah. I mean, you said a Black Monday 2 weeks ago.
But in answer to your question, I mean, what can Trump do rather than blow a bigger bubble? We can have real economic growth. He can make America great again. We can have real prosperity. That is possible. But first, we have to clean up the mess. The problem is Trump is trying to make the mess look like legitimate recovery. When he was a candidate, he was dead on accurate when he said the unemployment numbers were a myth. They were a hoax. Well, now he's perpetrating the same hoax. He was dead on accurate when he said the stock market was a bubble. It's still a bubble. It's a bigger bubble. So why can't Trump, the president, govern like Trump, the candidate? I want America to be great. But in order to do that, we can't blow another phony economy with a bubble. We need real economic growth. And so we need smaller government. Yes, I want tax cuts, but that means we need a smaller government. That means we got to cut spending. We got to eliminate departments. We got to make government smaller. Trump is making government bigger, and he's cutting taxes and trying to claim credit. You don't get credit for running bigger deficits to pay for bigger governments. If you want prosperity, we need to shrink government. We need to unleash the free market. We need to unleash capitalism. We're not doing that. We're doing the same smoke and mirror nonsense. What Trump doesn't realize is it isn't going to work now. He's not going to get out of Dodge. He's going to be a one-termer with this, and he's going to pave a way for a socialist in 2021 with both houses of Congress. They're going to blame all of this on capitalism, on the tax cuts, on deregulation. This is not what's causing it, but it's going to be what's going to get the blame. So Trump should be doing the real things that need to be done. If he's going to get blamed for something, let's get blamed for doing the right thing, because doing the right thing means some short-term pain. But you know what? We got to suck it up. You know, no pain, no gain. There's a lot to be gained if we take constructive pain, if we let this phony economy, you know, implode so we can replace it with something lasting and something real. And I have confidence in the free market system and in Americans that if the government got out of the way, we could rebuild this country. And that's what people elected Trump to do, not to blow an even bigger bubble.
But if the economy would have imploded during a correction and then obviously come back stronger after, as historically it does, they would have been able to impeach him by now when he's trying to bring the republic back, kill political correctness. Culturally, he's doing a lot of things that are more important to me than even money. But I understand what you're saying. Getting just into the technicals then, what do you expect to happen now? You've been pretty accurate.
Well, look, you know, I think the stock market is going to be trending lower because I think bond prices are going to keep falling. And eventually bond prices are going to crash and interest rates are going to skyrocket. The only thing that will prevent bond prices from crashing is if the stock market crashes first and the Fed comes to the rescue of the market by admitting that it's not going to keep raising rates, that it's not going to shrink its balance sheet, that it's going to launch QE4. I think the Fed has to sacrifice the dollar to prop everything up, and they may do that. There's going to be a lot of political pressure on the Fed to do just that, but that is a mistake because that is going to kill the dollar. That is going to create a crisis and ultimately a currency crisis, and what that implies for the U.S. economy, the average American, is going to be much more disruptive than a repeat financial crisis. But I think all that can happen before Trump finishes this term. So either way, it's going to be a disaster, and it's not going to be a record that he can run on 4 more years. The Democrats are going to exploit this to blame it on the Republicans, to blame it on Trump, to say, you see what happens when you cut taxes, you see what happens when you cut regulations, even though we haven't really cut that many. And even though the tax cuts don't count because we didn't cut government spending. We just substituted debt for taxation, which is a bad trade. Putting government on a credit card is a more expensive way to pay for it. But all this is going to bite us, just like Obama. Obama became president because everybody blamed the financial crisis on Bush and on capitalism and on deregulation. That's not why. But Bush stood idly by while this bubble inflated around him. And you had all these Republican talking heads who were cheerleading this phony economy. And I was on CNBC and I was on CNN and Fox saying, you guys are making a mistake by singing the praises of this bubble, because when it blows up, it's going to come back to bite us. That's exactly what happened.
Let me ask you this question then.
They don't let me on CNBC anymore, so I can't point this out.
I'm not disagreeing with you on the fundamentals here. All I'm saying is, look at the dollar, at least last time I checked an hour ago, is up. On all this certainty, aren't we kind of the best house in a bad neighborhood?
The dollar is barely up. You know, when the market was crashing back in 2008, the dollar was soaring. The dollar index is still below 90. The dollar has barely recovered anything. So there isn't a flight to the dollar. All that's happened over the last couple of days is the dollar stopped falling. But, you know, the dollar should be falling if people really understand what's going on. But they don't. That the markets will keep falling until the Fed cries uncle, until the Fed, you know, takes away the rate hikes. And of course, that's what's been propping the dollar up. And the amazing thing is the dollar's been falling even though everybody expects rate hikes, even though everybody thinks the economy is good, even though everybody thinks the Fed is going to shrink the money supply, the dollar has still been sinking. The dollar has everything going for it.
Well, let's talk timetables. And when you sit around the table with your wife and children or your business partners, what do you really expect to happen in the economy?
Look, you know, I expect the economy to relapse back into recession. I believe we would have already been in a recession. If you look at how GDP slowed rapidly, Obama's last year of growth was very low. I think had Hillary won, we would have been in a recession in the first year. Now, the Fed might not have raised rates as many times as they did, but I think we're going there anyway. But because Trump won and the prospect of it being a game changer, it created a lot of excitement. And I think there was some spending that took place, or maybe some investment that might not otherwise have taken place. And so I think we bought some time. I think the onset
Well, no, I agree with you. So let me ask you this as we go to break. Let me ask you this, Peter Schiff of Europac.com, before we go to break. Come back in 2 minutes to give us the answer from your perspective. I agree with all that. Why then is the Federal Reserve withdrawing its support, raising interest rates? Why is the media bad-mouthing the economy in many cases? Why are they having different policies now than they did with Obama? Just like you talked about in September, that's coming true, but now you're not wanting to defend the president as much. That's fine. I want to find out why on the other side. Newswars.com, prisonplanet.com. Spread those links. All right, final segment with Peter Schiff of Euro Pacific Capital, Europac.com. Then I'm going to open the phones up into all the other big breaking news in the next segment. Look, I like the fact that Trump's anti-political correctness, says he's free market, doing a lot of good things. But it's true that this economy is a giant bubble. And now, again, as I said before the break, we see the Federal Reserve with the activities it's doing, not supporting President Trump like it did Obama. So I was just asking Mr. Schiff why he thinks that's happening and then what that will precipitate.
Well, you know, the Fed, I said, they were dragging their feet in raising rates while Obama was president. They talked about raising rates, but at the end of the day, they barely moved them up. Now, the pace of hikes has increased since Trump was elected. But part of the reason for that, I mean, the media is not talking down the economy. If anything, they're overhyping the economy. Everybody's talking about how strong the economy is, how everything is great. Everybody is taking credit for this great economy. The Fed wants to take credit for it. Trump wants to take credit for it. So if everybody's talking about how great the economy is, the Fed doesn't have any excuse if it doesn't raise rates. How can the Fed not raise rates when they're so low if the economy is really this great? So in order to keep up the pretense that the economy is as strong as everybody thinks, the Fed is in this box where it has to raise rates. But, you know, they can't tell the truth that, well, it's really a bubble, and if we raise rates, we're going to prick it. So they're kind of in this bind, and they're still, you know, telegraphing that they're going to raise rates 3 or 4 times this year, and that is the problem. You know, and the market, though, is moving rates up even higher because the deficit is exploding. You see, one of the things that happened under Obama is he inherited a massive deficit from Bush. The deficit skyrocketed in 2008, 2009. And so after a couple of years, the deficits were slowly falling while Obama was president. Now, they were falling from a very high level, but at least they were going down. All of a sudden, deficits are skyrocketing, and they're about to explode out of control. Yet we have no way to finance them. That is the problem. And so interest rates have no place to go but way up, not just a little up, but much, much higher. And how can we afford to service the debt? Where is the government going to get the money to pay the interest?
Let me ask you this then. Can Trump, if you're right, get out of this? Is there a way to get out of this? Because culturally what he's doing is great.
No, well, look, the sooner he tells the truth, the better. But of course, it's going to be hard now, given all the credit he's claimed for what's happened since he was elected, for him to now come clean and say the economy's no good. The stock market's a bubble. I think he got a lot of bad advice. And now, unfortunately, he is the fall guy. There's no way to stop this. And if the Fed under Powell tries to buy Trump some time, I don't think he's going to be able to buy enough. I think the problem is so big that the minute the Fed has to try to solve it, it's going to unleash a much bigger one.
But in fairness, you did call this 2 weeks ago. You said it was imminent. But you've been thinking this is going to implode before, though.
Well, I didn't think the stock market would, because I thought the Fed would cave. I have expected the Fed to basically backtrack. I thought the Fed was more bluffing, and they haven't shrunk the balance sheet. So I'm right there. They've been talking about it. It hasn't actually happened, but they have raised interest rates several times. They're still posturing as if they're going to keep doing it. And when I saw the big increase in long-term interest rates based on a skyrocketing budget deficit and a skyrocketing trade deficit, I was like, okay, this is it. The market's got to tank. How could the market go up for so many days and ignore all this bad news? I mean, when you see these big increases in interest rates, when you see these deficits, you know that this is a problem.
Are you expecting it to plane out for a while and then go down the next month or so, or just keep kind of going down?
Well, right now, I think we've done a lot of technical damage. I don't think this market's just going to roar back and make new highs unless the Fed engineers it. But if the Fed's going to continue to posture as if rates are going up and they're going to shrink their balance sheet, then they're going to sell the stock market. And more importantly, they're going to sell the bond market.
I know you got to go, but we're back in 60 seconds. Let me ask you one question. How low do you think it'll go then? And then how do we come back out of that if what you're saying is true? Back in 60. The head of Euro-Pacific Capital, Europec.com, Peter Schiff, is our guest. He was on with us on the 19th 2 weeks ago and said, it's imminent. We could have, one of these collapses on Monday coming up the next few weeks. And, of course, he said that a few weeks ago on his own show. So I get he's a smart guy. I've been interviewing him probably, I don't know, at least 15 years or so. And he's a respected guy. In fact, he said a lot of things they didn't want to hear, so he's kind of been banned off MSNBC and CNBC and other channels. I guess he's on Fox Business some, but he's here. And here's where I stand. And then I want him to be able to finish up and get out of here because I know he's busy. Trump culturally going after political correctness, trying to secure our border, trying to not attack our families, take care of our veterans, the exuberance, the positivity. I like that. I get there's issues. Damned if he brings the economy down to reset it. Damned if he doesn't. It's a bubble. They blame it on him. So it's kind of like I'm a backseat driver, and we all are, other than our own positivity, our own exuberance. But I'm not in a cult at the same time. I just think, what would it be like if Hillary was in? They were coming after the free press. They already are. We'd be in a much worse world. So I just don't want to be the eternal pessimist here. But I've been sitting there every day just waiting to wake up and see the stock market drop a couple thousand points and then precipitate a downward spiral. So if you just joined us during the last segment, he was getting into, is the Fed really going to raise rates? Then it's going to start going down. If they don't, how long can that go? So just finishing up then on what you expect, depending on what the Fed does, this to look like, and some of the time frames there.
It's not just the Fed raising short-term rates. It is the market raising long-term rates. The yield on a 10-year Treasury is about 3%, right? Just under 3%. Historically, the yield averages the nominal GDP, which is, the real GDP plus the inflation rate. So if you look at where GDP is now in inflation, the yield should be 7%. Why is it 3%? We can't afford 7%. If everything is so great, why are interest rates still so low? I mean, none of it makes sense. I mean, they're low, but they can't stay here. So the market is now getting a sense of this massive supply of Treasury bonds that is going to be flooding the market. Why would you want to own these bonds? China doesn't want to own them. Japan doesn't want to own them. Americans don't have any money to buy them. We have the lowest savings rate in over 10 years. Nobody wants these treasuries. And not only does the Treasury have to sell them, the Fed says they're going to sell theirs. So there are no real buyers. Yields have to go up. And so everything has to come crashing down. These social issues need to take a back seat. If the economy crashes, if the market crashes, if we have a worse economy than the one that Bush left Obama, then none of the other stuff matters because we're simply paving the way for somebody worse than Hillary Clinton. Not worse than that, I mean, Bernie Sanders, I think, is an honest man. He's just completely wrong. He's just a naive socialist who doesn't know anything. Hillary was just about making money for herself. But I don't want socialists taking over Washington. I don't want a wave of discontent, right, so that Sanders or somebody like him can surf into the White House. I don't want to see all these Republicans lose first in 2018 and then in 2020. Because if you're worried about these other issues, what do you think is going to happen when the Democrats have everything? And not just regular Democrats, people way to the left of any Democrat who's ever been in office, because this is going to put such a black eye on capitalism, on cutting. They're going to say, we need more government. We need more regulation. Look at how badly business screwed up the economy. We cut taxes on business, and look at the mess, right? Oh, Obama handed a perfect economy.
Well, let me bring that up. I mean, Trump is trying to unify the country. The left is trying to cause a civil war. It's in the WikiLeaks. So do they get any blame if they're able to tank all this?
I don't, look, I think Trump's going to get blamed because he's already claimed credit for how great everything is. He said, because of me, the economy is booming.
But don't you get he's trying to cheerlead to prop it up and get actual jobs back? You know that.
Yeah, but that's not going to get actual jobs back, and it's not getting actual jobs back. What we need for actual jobs is we need more savings. We need more capital investment. We need to grow worker productivity. None of this is happening because we've got a gigantic government in the way, and we've got too much debt.
Sure. So what does your gut tell you? Do you think the Fed backs off and then backs Trump, or do you think that they go ahead and start raising interest rates?
Look, I think that eventually, if the economic data gives them cover, if the market goes down enough, they will be political for Trump the way they were political for Clinton. I mean, now that Powell is there, Powell is a Republican. Powell is not Janet Yellen. I didn't think Janet Yellen wanted to help Trump. But maybe Powell will. I mean, that might be why Trump appointed him. But I don't think it's going to help. I think it's going to be too little too late. I think the economy is too bad. The bubble is too big. There's too much air. That another round of quantitative easing, cutting interest rates from 1.5% to 0 is not going to do it. There are no more bubbles to inflate. We have the biggest bubble now. We have the mother of all bubbles, and the air is going to come out of it. And I don't think Trump can get out of Dodge in time. And this is the danger. This is the political danger of where we are, and why I really wish that he had come in more forthright about the problems. Not that he caused them, but that he's going to clean up the mess. Now, people are going to claim that it's Trump's mess that needs to be cleaned up.
But see, his great strength is the optimism. You can also call it his Achilles heel. We'll be watching it together again.
It's false optimism. I don't want to be optimistic that, the ice is sound, and then I go on and I fall through, right? You need to only be optimistic when it's warranted. This false optimism, you promise a lot and you deliver very little. You have so many people that expect so much, and they're going to be so disappointed. This is not going to go over well. And so a better approach would have been, a more honest explanation of the problem. And even if that meant one term, it would have been one term that was worth it. It would have been one term where we could do something good, as opposed to just be a stepping stone.
All right.
To something much worse.
Well, Peter Schiff, you're a smart guy. We'll track this as it unfolds. Thank you so much for the time.
I don't know what happened to my backdrop.
Hey, I like it. I kind of like, we've had our TVs fail before.
Space now.
We've had our TVs fail before, and it looks, and now that it's sharp, it looks even cooler when it's black back there. Hey, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, all right.
There he goes. Everything is perspective, and I agree with the fundamentals of what Peter Schiff just said. That's why we have him on, and he's proven very accurate over the years, sometimes predicting things before they happen, but then they end up happening. You look at nationalism, whether it's Brexit or whether it's what's happening in South America or what's happening all over Europe or what's happening here. This is about nationalism and about taking our countries back and about taking our sovereignty back and about taking our culture back and taking us out of the TPP. Look at the psychology of that photo of two old folks by themselves in a big stadium, if you're a radio listener. It's an article trying to make it look like, oh, why is nationalism so popular? But then the message is it's old, it's over, it's gone, and nobody is in the bleachers with you. Sometimes a picture is worth 1,000 words, 1,000 words of deception. That was an old couple that showed up hours before Trump showed up to be at the rally. And they got in first. And the photographer was there waiting for it. But again, another deception. So there are a lot of things worth more than money. And I'll say this. We're sitting on top of a time bomb, like I said yesterday during the show before the plunge even started. But it's our time bomb. And we're taking control of the system away. They've had the bubble in China, 5, depending on the year, 10 times bigger than ours. It's totally state-run and pumped up. And quite frankly, if they deflate it now, the country will descend into civil war and mass death. They already have thousands of riots a week in China. Like I said, dead bodies rotting on the side of the road. It's easy for it to leverage its power out because it gives nothing to its people. They have no standard of living. They produce a ton and then get nothing. And I've got a stack of articles about, you know, Americans have to learn to have less and all the rest of it. Well, only if the establishment really proves that and then they themselves give up something, but instead they just get richer and richer and more powerful. It's an argument for feudalism is always, oh, we're saving Mother Earth, going back to Plato, 2,362 years ago, you know, writing Plato's Republic, if memory serves. So again, culturally, Trump's delivering. Spiritually, he's delivering. Energy-wise, he's delivering. Is he stuck between a rock and a hard place? Absolutely. But can that incredible optimism blast our way out? Absolutely. And are they plunging the market right now, controlled, to send him a message? Absolutely. Are we in a war? Absolutely. All right. I was thinking during the break, and I'm going to lay it out right now, that this is one of the most important things I've probably ever said in my long history of being on air. And it's this. There are different types of wealth. There is physical, monetary wealth. There is genetic wealth, health. There is creativity. There are so many different types of wealth. Time itself is wealth. And the media sets everything up that the stock market is the measure of everything, or how big a piece of property you have is the measure of who you are, or how big your red carpet is, or do you have the biggest house on the hill in the best neighborhood in the best elite area. And then once they get you into that artificial system, they can get you to sell out your principles and your very humanity for these symbols of power that aren't real wealth. And I say that because I like seeing our stock market up. I like seeing record low jobless claims. I like seeing record new small company startups. I like seeing optimism when the globalists have been trying to demoralize the average person, demoralize small companies, demoralize farmers, demoralize ranchers, demoralize small independent groups of people. The world has been in hundreds of years of vertical integration. We were in total vertical integration 550 years ago, before a few hundred years of Renaissance began an explosion of freedom, but still limited. The robber barons, the last 200 years, struck back. They lost some places, like 1776, but we just became what we were fighting within 100 years. Look at the jungle. Look at the tomes that were written at that time of what was happening. So we positively point out that exuberance, bringing jobs back, bringing factories back, bringing back pro-human economies is a good thing. But then the media says, you didn't really cause that prosperity, or that prosperity isn't really real. They talk out of both sides of their mouth. Obama. You didn't build that business. Obama did. Trump points out removing some regulations, cutting some energy prices has caused a surge. But we were supposed to be going into austerity by now. That's what had openly been said at all the universities, the big think tanks, what Obama gave speeches about in Argentina and Brazil and Nigeria and South Africa and Thailand and you name it. You can't have a car. You can't have air conditioning. That's going to make the earth boil over. But I can. I'm the feudal class. I'm the overlord class that controls the feudalists, that controls the slaves. So take Russia. This is a boiled down gestalt of a historical research I've done, that fades with the mist of memory. But you get the Soviet Union, a enclave of leftist expansion. The public uses total brainwashed slaves to build a technological system to challenge the West and expand, but also make the West expand to face that threat, becoming what it claimed it was fighting. So a very sophisticated Machiavellian gambit that was very successful, and they've declassified the fact that that was the case. People like McCarthy came along and exposed our own Carnegie Foundation and the Army are running the Soviet Union and advising them, and our economists tell them what to do. He was out of there at that point. When he was just wanting to spy on people and get rid of the Bill of Rights, he was a wonderful guy. But as soon as he broke through to the real level of what was going on, he was bye-bye. And now it's all declassified. The Russians know it. It's all come out, and they're pretty pissed off. So, again, as an example of where we should go, we look at countries like Russia. You go back to 1991, 92. They had 7 or 8 big oligarchs, all owned by Western banks. The people were kept artificially poor. There wasn't supposed to be an economy in Russia. Russia was purely extraction at point-blank range. No economy. Starvation level. The state-run institutions collapsing, used up. They thought they'd come in a final phase with oligarchs and cut it up even more and bring in Western colonialism in the end phase after communism. That only took 30 years in China. It took 80 plus until the globalists thought Russia was ready for full absorption, or the assanguation, the blood-sucking. But Russia came back, kicked that out, seized control of the means of production, began transferring it to the people and institutions loyal to the population in a nationalist, populist, blood and soil program. From that launch point, the globalists were still arrogant, moving on, but that same instinct, that same human instinct, the sleeping giant, only coming back at the point of cultural death, began to launch all over the world. And so Trump's great triumph is cultural victory, pro-human victory, pro-Western values victory, crushing the back of free speech controllers, going after the censors, and making us be a nation again. And if they try to sabotage our economy and try to shut us down, as sanctions and internal espionage and attacks did in Russia in the last 17, 18 years, the Russians dug in and have built an even better homogeneous economy, which is a good thing, that is independent and not under outside control, and burgeoning technology and so many other systems, and finally turning their population reduction program back from the brink of death and showing meager gains. We can do that in spades. And so that's what I'm telling you. They hijack the stock market and plunge it. They try to block new jobs coming in. They do all this. No, Trump came in the midst of our final beheading, bringing us down like Russia had been, and reversed it. And now he's fighting with this whole structure, as you are and as I am. And the system thinks you're so shallow that if they can implode the economy, if they can bloody the nose of this victory, you'll somehow, like a bunch of sharks, roll over and turn on someone who believed in you and is making hundreds of phone calls a day and traveling the country trying to supercharge the nation, and who's made the decision to fight their bubbles with a bubble based on you. And the globalists have taken record profits off the exuberance because they were already going to get it all to begin with. They don't like that because they know a lot of that money's going to you. But it's bigger than that. The victory is cultural. They could bring us into a depression. That's why we got to be independent and prepared. They could do anything to us to break our will and make us accept the nightmare of disarmament, the nightmare of cultural brainwashing, the nightmare of the race war, division they're sowing. And we know the #1 mission is to spiritually and culturally and physically not be under the globalist system. Because 100 years after the big New York banks financed the Bolshevik Revolution, they believe and Soros believed that last year would be their victory with Herr Hillary, and it fell on its face. So money is a secondary issue. They want to make it the issue by making you so poor you've got to have it. Trump wants to make you be comfortable so you can do the higher things. But know this, if they think they're going to try to take the monetary away from us like a dog holding on to a bone, we have to understand it's the long fight. And as bad as things may get, they'd be a lot worse. And according to the enemy's terms, if we hadn't stood up for the entire long, committed fight. All right, I got a lot of clips I want to play here. I said I'd get to your calls, and then I just got jammed up with news. But tomorrow we will open the phones up. Got a lot of big guests coming up, but I do want to take a lot of your calls. And the War Room's coming up as well with Owen Schroyer and Roger Stone. Paul Watson's going to host the 4th hour from England. Always informative. But seriously, I said last segment that I'm saying some of the most important things I've ever said. And I guarantee you, almost everybody listening said, buddy, that's everything my grandma and grandpa said, and everything my preacher said, and everything I think about at night. Don't tell us something we don't already know. It's the greatest truths that are hiding right in front of us. The greatest truths are the average person just wants enough money to be comfortable, take care of their family, have decent transportation, and maybe see a couple cool places a year. There is a wanderlust. One of the things I like having some money is that I can go see things, but then I'm always so busy fighting the globalist, I don't. So sometimes I do a kind of workcation. If I need to go cover something, then every once in a while I'll take the family. But that's like once a year now. And I'm not ashamed of that fact. I mean, I'm proud of the fact that in my hierarchy of needs, it's not walking down red carpets. In fact, that wasn't something I really wanted 20 years ago, but I still thought it was kind of interesting. Now, it's not even on my pyramid. Remember in health class, they had the hierarchy of needs. What was it called? Maslow's or something? But it had like shelter and food's the bottom. And then you want to have friendship and community. And then you want to have organizational systems to take care of others. And then you really become purely charity-driven. And that is how a good person is, because when you really become successful, then as Maslow's. I was going from memory 30 years ago. That was like in freshman in high school or something. I'll be 44 next week. Self-actualization, esteem, love, belonging, safety, psychology. Yeah, you got to have your basic psychology and be operating not as an insane person. So sanity. See, we'll see how my memory does from 30-something years ago. Let's go back. So you've got, it's about 31 years ago, I read this in the textbook, but it made sense to me. So sanity's the #1 thing you need in life. Then it's physiological, your body. I know it's physiological, but I'm saying psychology. You got to have your body, you got to have your health, got to have food, got to have your psychology. You got to have, I'm kind of combining a bunch of things here. They were pointing out a typo. I was just kind of combining it all together. So you got to have your food, got to have your water, got to have your shelter, got to have your mind and not be insane. And then safety. You're not insane. You got a decent village. You're good people, got enough fish to catch. Everybody's doing great. You're taking care of grandma and grandpa. They're taking care of you. They know what plants to take when you're sick. And then safety, because you don't want a bunch of folks coming over the next hill and enslaving you, because they might be bad folks. And then there's love and belonging, feeling like you have kinship. And then there is esteem, the fact that you're proud of the fact that's what's happening, and other people are proud of you, and you've had success in the community, you've mastered some things, and then finally, self-actualization. But self-actualization is very empowering, but it's also like having a bunch taken away from you. Because let me tell you something. I used to enjoy, even 15 years ago, being famous and being able to affect things and rubbing it into enemies and defeating people that were bad. As you get more conscious, it's like rocket boosters on the space shuttle falling off. You kind of miss it, because that engine of ego and the raw lust for power, even though I was a moral person and a good person and didn't like pedophiles and didn't like globalists and didn't like con artists, still it was about I'm big, I'm bad, I'm strong, and I'm going to beat all of you. And I've still got that skeleton. But then it becomes self-actualization. Then, if we can't defeat these bad people, we're going to lose the whole species. And I really am everybody else that's around me. And it's complete collectivism. But you don't do collectivism at the bottom. That creates nightmares of hell. Collectivism is individually deployed by individuals that have become self-actualized to the larger global system of interconnectedness. But it doesn't mean you give up your individualism for some greater good that always becomes a tyranny. It means you balance all of that and gauge the good of the whole, knowing you're part of a large continuum or compendium that's always expanding. But see, there are other people who aren't born, in my view, as genetic psychopaths or born as genetic sociopaths, but are artificially brought into it, seeking power, seeking shelter, seeking safety. They never go above the second level, and in seeking safety, they enter into deals with the devil and with the system, believing that will empower them and become models of the psychopathic, barbarous, aggressive, murderous systems that they've seen that they believe are successful. And they're able to then organize all of that and deploy all of that synthetically. It's been said that peace is an artificial construct and is only us denying our real selves. No. Peace is us accepting our real selves, but also understanding peace has many definitions and means basically the absence of open war and barbarism. So we create law, we create systems of violence that are not physically violent. But then there are super classes above that that act in true violence, but covert violence through culture, chemical, biological, radiological, to wage war against the entire population in a self-actualization of pure Satanism, where you say, I am not, as I become self-actualized, someone connected to everybody else. I hate them. I hate how they look. I hate how they sound. I hate the fact that they're there contending their wills with me. And so I want to dumb them down and then kill them. And that is the self-actualization of the globalist. And they think those of us that are self-actualized that don't want to go with that plan are fools. But then I take one look at these so-called elitists, and they're not elitist. You know, the Crew put up a London Independent article that says Mao killed 45 million people. Well, there's the Cultural Revolution, the Great Leap Forward, a bunch of other stuff. But the CIA says 65 million, and the Communist Chinese Party says 84 million. And they say that mistakes were made. So I don't know what the real number is, but 45 million is a low number. 65 is a moderate number. 94 million in the 20th century, that's reason with an article. I think it's much higher than that. If you think about that, that's something you want to be running from. But see, the average dumbed-down trendy who feels disempowered, who can't even get the basic psychology, the basic physiology, the basic working body, which above all, you need a working mind. That's why I see physiology, I think psychology. I think your mental capacity. Automatically, my brain just sees that word. And you think about what they've done, and you think about what's unfolded, and you think about what they've turned us into, and it's just incredible. It's the quest to get out of the way of fellow humans and build them up so you have a future with other humans, because you realize your great-great-grandchildren are you, and there's a love of this great continuum of knowledge and energy and soul that will then manifest in the future and do incredible things. And it's that anti-selfishness that actually is the most selfish thing of all, because once you bridge that gap, you've now made the connection into the future and have now become beyond self-actualized. You have now become interdimensionally actualized with the full beginning connections of the entire space-time continuum, and have entered what I can only describe as that absolute Zen moment of purity and total connectedness. And that is the place the globalists will not look. That is the place they fear. Now, I see some big breaking news on Infowars.com. I haven't gotten to it, just broke a few minutes ago. And that is James Paddock believed he was under mind control. Well, he had the classic cutout of a CIA asset and was all over the world, and that's what we were told by our sources, is that he was doing gun running to Islamicists who set him up. But now that's Paul Joseph Watson. Stephen Paddock was paranoid. He was under MK Ultra, Infowars.com. Don't believe our intel sources that we've got Chinese communist hackers and others inside the Amtrak switching systems. Another train crisis today. I never even got to. Amtrak train breaks apart while traveling at high speed towards Boston, decoupling the train cars. Thank God there were no injuries. Meanwhile, breaking on Infowars.com, reports Stephen Paddock was paranoid. He was a victim of government mind control. Now, I'm not saying he was under mind control, but, you know, the Unabomber said he was under mind control, and then CIA documents got declassified that Theodore Kaczynski volunteered and then disappeared for over a decade when he was, going to Harvard? You can look it up. It's in the LA Times. In MK Ultra mind control experiments. But, oh, you're volunteering for the experiment. But once they get you into it, there's no volunteering. Las Vegas massacre gunman Stephen Paddock. I talked about this the day of the shooting, the day after the shooting. I talked about the mind control and said it should be looked at. Not to make him the shooter, but to be the patsy. Las Vegas massacre gunman Stephen Paddock was paranoid that he was the victim of government mind control, according to a prostitute who stayed in his infamous Mandalay Hotel suite. They tried to cover up that she stayed there with him, by the way. An article that has received virtually no attention, the radar reveals that a call girl who was booked to see Paddock earlier that day before the massacre was reported missing by her boyfriend after the shooting, which left 58 dead and 800 injured. According to the sex worker named Michaela, the prostitute was telling girls after work that she was scared something would happen to her. Yeah, and folks told everybody, get out of there. You'll be dead in 45 minutes. Michaela worked as Paddock's $6,000 a night prostitute and slept with him in the infamous Mandalay Hotel suite from which Paddock launched his deadly assault. She saw Paddock 2 or 3 times a month, for the 64-year-old gunman volunteered to be her sugar daddy. So let's explain something here. He's got this nothing job, but he's laundering hundreds of thousands of dollars a week in front of people through things. Has these airplanes going to the Middle East, flying around. The Islamic group comes to town. Saudi Arabia is having a function there, military function. The breakaway groups go to get guns from him. They use that to launch the attack. And the whole thing's a message to Trump. That's what I was told by high-level federal sources. I told you the whole story was fake. And, of course, it's all starting to come out, just as we told you. Big story up on Infowars.com. Also, false tsunami warning sent to East Coast, Gulf of Mexico, and Caribbean. This never happens. The missile warning, too. All of this is meant to spook the country into financial collapse. Just like the globalists did to Russia over and over again the last 18 years. And admittedly, it's been declassified. They've done that. And again, the only kinship with Russia is we're fighting the same globalists. They're pulling the same crap. Does it mean Trump's perfect? No. But we're trying to get control of our country again. And so if we judge Trump just by the economics, they can try to take that away. I think they're going to fail. More importantly is judging it by what happens culturally. And don't forget this huge story that no one pointed out. We have it on Infowars.com. It's got no coverage. I didn't know this. You got Uma Thurman saying they spit on her. They made her crash cars. They said they didn't. They should release the video of her knocked out. That they abused, you know, that Weinstein abused women. And then he threatens to sue her, even though there's hundreds of witnesses to sex assaults, rapes, you name it. He's just back to where he was, back to threatening everybody. Meanwhile, the media keeps defending it. They try to crucify other people with no proof. Shocking bombshell. Quentin Tarantino defends Polanski's pedophile rape of a little girl, says sex with 13-year-old isn't rape. Director's statements even shocked Howard Stern. So, I mean, another degenerate, another whatever, shocking people with stuff like Pulp Fiction, which is an okay film. It's got a lot of good actors, but a bunch of other crap movies, unwatchable. And he's just so arrogant. He walked over to me all dweebed out at some premiere of a movie. I know what was it? It was a premiere. It was a re-showing with the director of Exorcist, who, by the way, was former CIA. That was admitted. And he also made The French Connection. So I came to see The French Connection. I didn't stay for the double showing. You had to pay for it, The Exorcist. Didn't want to watch it. And I walk out. He comes over and he's like, oh, you're the conspiracy guy. Oh, he just looked like he had a genetic disorder or something, which I'm not putting down how he looks. It was just in person. He's even more hideous. And then one of his little minions scrabbled over as my then pregnant wife with our firstborn, going down the big stairs there, jumped down with his feet and tried to kick my ex-wife's feet. She's a witness of this, to make her go down and lose the child. And I just never forget. And I looked up, and there was the newspaper reporter head right next to Tarantino with the guy. And I didn't beat his ass because it was so crazy. He goes, "Oh, I'm sorry, it's an accident. It's an accident." So there's my Quentin Tarantino story. And there's my ex-wife, like 7 months pregnant. And I got Tarantino and some little goon going around. And I ever see Tarantino again, I've thought about this a lot. I'll give him a little piece of my mind. That's a guarantee. Because, man, hindsight's 20/20. And I just, I never told that story. There's my Quentin Tarantino story. And that's what went on. That's what happened. He was there. Look it up. Check it. And that's the type of person he is. And I know the name of the guy that tried to kick my wife down the stairs. All of it. And it's unbelievable. And again, say, well, why did you beat his ass? It's like, it's so surreal. And the person saying, sorry, sorry, sorry. And that person came after me later and did a bunch of stuff. And then I found out what it was about. They're spiritually dialed in, but to their evil force. And that was 16 years ago. My son's 15, about to be 16. That was 16 years ago while he was gestating in my ex-wife. And I didn't understand it then, why he hated me so much, why he saw me out there when the movie let out. There was all these big crowds, and he come up and spoke, and introduced the French Connection guy. And I'm sitting there, and, back then it was a really trendy thing. Hollywood was kind of moving here, but, and you go see really cool movies and hear directors all the time. That's what launched Alamo Drafthouse. And I'll never forget feeling somebody look at me and seeing him like 30 feet away going, that big chin all looking crazy and kind of addling over. "What are you doing here?" Like saying something and walking off. And then I'm like, "Hey, let's get out of here." And 40 seconds later, man, boom. So you want to talk about evil. He radiates it. Radiates it. And I guess it was just so shocking when I looked up and there was Tarantino, because that old Alamo had like, the big long 20 stairs. Yeah, the old, down it. That big balcony stairs. I remember looking up, everybody thinking it was funny and just like, let's get out of here, because that demon was right up there at the top of the stairs. And it was just like, and like this little Joker guy giggling and laughing. "Oh, I'm sorry, it's an accident, Alex." And I remember when I was sitting there, I was in their club. I didn't know you'd read that in the paper. Go, "This sounds interesting. I like the French Connection. I like the actors that are in it." I remember that minion came over to me while I was sitting on the side of a row, like 5 rows back, and said, who worked for the local paper, and said, "Oh, you're here. What are you doing here? You shouldn't be here." I forgot that part. And 2 hours later, they let me know, "You don't come around us. We'll spit on Uma Thurman. We'll make her crash the car. We'll cover up her Weinstein raping women every day." And that's just raving demons. Raving demons. And that's a true story, 100%. Some people wonder why I'm so pissed off at Tarantino. I saw him one more time in a restaurant about 10 years ago, and I almost walked over there and told him, "Get up," but I just didn't do it. Because I can't prove that he was in on that, even though that was his little minion. I now know. But imagine the evil that radiates. He's doing that constantly. Tarantino, why wasn't that that special? He's screwing people and dominating them and getting them under his little filthy thumb. Because it turns out he was a Renfield for Hollywood. He, for decades, supplied things to him. But he was sick enough and filthy enough for them to love him. So that's your Tarantino God. So hope I don't ever see you, Tarantino. All right, there you go. Called you out, scumbag. Now, that said, we need to be flooded with capital to defeat the enemy. I want to launch on all these satellites in the next month. The uplinks are going in right now. I'm going to launch all these new programs, all these new, they're trying to censor, trying to hit us. Go to InfoWarsStore.com, and we will take it to the enemy 110%. You've got an absolute guarantee from me, from the bottom of my heart, to take action. And we've got great deals, great supplements, great products, the very best systems. And a lot of it is about to sell out at the prices, 50+% off. It's actually 51% off on Pollen Block Cell Force is going to be called DNA Force Plus, even stronger. We can get lower prices on it, so we drop the price for you. Unbelievable. Even though that was the best seller, we always sold out of DNA Force. Now it's called DNA Force Plus, but it's called Cell Force right now. And so many other great products. Go there. Shop with the good guys. Sign up for auto ship, an additional 10% off. Free shipping on over $50 or more. We got Patriot points, 5% off. On every dollar, you get the Patriot points. Hollywood doesn't want us to have money. They don't want us to be independent. They don't want us to be strong. They don't want us to be focused. They don't want us to be upright. They want us to be the little minions of people like Roman Polanski and Quentin Tarantino and Harvey Weinstein and all this other cowardly nerd club demon sucker level. Well, guess what? Humanity's awake now, scum, and you're going to have to face us toe-to-toe with all the rest of your zombies. Stay with us. You know, I thought about what happened that night. I was talked about for 16 years. And I swear on the altar of God that these people are going to be brought to justice. Shocking bombshell. Tarantino defends Polanski's pedophilic rape of 13-year-old drug girl, says sex with 13-year-olds isn't rape. The audio's up on Infowars.com right now. Let's get this article and slam it out there. Let's get it out to everybody. These people believe they own you and your family. Paul Watson's coming up in the next segment. He's getting his Skype connection dialed in. By the way, we don't tell these stories to sound big. I don't want to be part of Hollywood. I've already been in some movies. They wanted me to be in a bunch of others. I didn't do it. I would do it if it was the right directors and the right people to get a good message across. And some of those opportunities have come, and some I've refused, and some have gone, and some others I've thought about doing, but only now that Hollywood's fully collapsing. Only to then route them and show them what it's really all about. But they have at least 8 or 9 TV shows right now where they admit that the character's Alex Jones, and they say on the show it's Alex Jones, or they name the episode Infowars or Alex Jones, where pedophiles are named Alex Jones, killers are named Alex Jones, people that want to kill the female president are Alex Jones, because they're going ahead with all the scripts, you know, despite the fact Hillary lost. Well, Homeland boss of season 7, Trump inspiration, Alex Jones and Rip Peter Quinn. So this is a popular television show, reaches millions of people every week. And you tune into it, just to give you an example of what I'm talking about here. Oh, this isn't the marked up copy I had my own copy. I guess there's 2 of these here. And it says, so this is the bad guys based on Alex Jones. They go, oh, yeah, we sit there for hours and we watch it and we can't believe all the things he says, and then we put it in the show. Well, no, you don't put what I said in the show. I'm running the fake news on the show. I'm a racist on the show. I have hundreds and hundreds of employees just to put out fake news. And I said, you know, this Jake Weber, who supposedly plays my part, man, I'd like to get in the ring with him. And I said, that's metaphysically. And they go, oh, Alex says, they said, how much Alex Jones have you been watching and do the research? And they say, oh, a bunch. And he goes on to say, have you heard anything from Alex Jones? Is he watching? And no, the answer is no. I just see some of the clips that get sent. Alex Jones challenged Jake Weber to a fist fight. And what Alex Jones doesn't realize is that Jake Weber has been a boxer for 30 years. So oh, really? He won a bunch of titles? Won a bunch of fights? It's just saying you're a boxer and being a boxer. So I would not recommend getting in the ring with him. I want to get in the ring with him even more now. My point is I said, you steal my identity, you steal our studio, you say you're me in interviews, and then you say stuff like you don't like black people in my voice. How about I sue you? How about that? I mean, I can't only put up with so much of your identity theft because you steal my identity and then you go around committing these virtual crimes in my name. So I can then be censored and attacked in the real world while Hollywood pisses in my face and the American people's face, and I'm sick of you. I'm not flattered that they've got shows where the daughter of Mae West, the famous girlfriend of Anton LaVey, simulates being raped as Millie Weaver in a show called InfoWar by Antifa at Charlottesville, and then the jury lets them go and says, good job raping women. See, that's their whole thing. How do we get the public to cheer a woman being raped and make it liberal and cool, but then destroy men and women's society together, claiming all sex is rape? And maybe her daughter is a devil worshiper like Mae West. I mean, she looks like Mae West. The point is she's up there playing the part of Millie Weaver, getting gang raped with blood all over her. And the name of the show's InfoWars on Law & Order. Law & Order episode. And it's all just a message. We're going to rape your female reporters. And it's brought to you by Hollywood. The same people that brought you Roman Polanski's a great guy, drugging 13-year-olds and raping them. We'll be back with Paul Watson. Yeah, I told some pretty incredible true stories in the last 15, 20 minutes, the last hour. My run-in with Quentin Tarantino. And the fact that my ex-wife at the time, she was right about it. She said, how dare you not beat that guy's ass for trying to kick me downstairs? And I said, I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it. And then there's Quentin Tarantino right there and a local newspaper writer all setting it up. It was just too unbelievable. But so is Quentin Tarantino going on Howard Stern and saying, hey, I think it's okay to have sex with 13-year-olds. You know, drug them up. It's not rape if you drug them up and have sex with them, because that's what happened with Roman Polanski. But see, everything is coming out. Everything. You look at those two predators together. So I asked Paul Watson, while we're on the subject of InfoWars, with the markets and everything else that's happening, they know that Trump's trying to bring back prosperity. Globalism siphons off prosperity, Paul. Globalism picks winners. It creates a 1% that did have a third of the wealth that now has 70% of it. They're the same ones bitching, saying get rid of capitalism, get rid of the ladder of success. But just like Russia for decades has been under sanctions and economic attack, it made them more independent and homogeneous economically and made them stronger. So I want prosperity that comes with getting out from under globalism. But at the end of the day, if they try to hold us hostage with that, we have to know they're the ones killing the prosperity, and they're the ones that have done it, not Trump, not nationalism. Trump and nationalism from the UK to the US to Catalan to Italy to Brazil to the Czech Republic to Czechoslovakia to what's happening in Romania and Hungary and Poland and Austria. They're all going nationalist, and suddenly economies are coming back. If the globalists devastate the economy to try to bring us under heel, we've all got to understand we're just like the UK for, you know, several years of being encircled by U-boats and, you know, family of mine that went down in the North Atlantic trying to get Lend-Lease weapons to the UK. You guys didn't give up under the year and a half of the Blitzkrieg and the Blitz and the bombs dropping. We need that Churchillian speech. You can't find the full speech, what they actually gave. I never record stuff in movie theaters, but I did record the audio of the Darkest Hour, where a kind of a sissified version of Churchill gives the speech about, you know, we're going to go on to the end, whatever the cost may be, and it's going to get rough, but we're not going to give up. People have to understand, Trump was going to be the slick way, kind of the rapture version of getting out of hell, hopefully. But if they try to shut all this down, capitulating to the globalists means abject slavery and economic servitude. Paul Watson, how do you connect that equation together about where we stand? We need to know we try to do this via prosperity, and I think it's already coming back, and hopefully it stays there. But we can't be held hostage to that. We have to let the globalists know whatever they pull, we're going to be nationalist and free marketeers and fight even harder because they want their money too. We've got to play chicken with them and let them know we're not going to turn the wheel. We're going in, through, and beyond. Do you catch what I'm saying?
Well, Alex, the Dow is now, it just almost went up 500 points. It went from 330 to 500 in the space of about 5 minutes. So I guess today it's all thanks to Obama again, right? They've spent the past year saying that all these economic numbers, the record highs in the stock market, is all thanks to Obama. Yesterday and Friday obviously plunged, so that was thanks to Trump. Now it's back up 484 points, coming to the close of the session, I guess, here in a couple of hours. So I guess now it's thanks to Obama all over again. And that's the thing, Alex. 81 times the Dow hit a high during Trump's first year in office. The mainstream media reported on it only 17 times. And what, of course, did we see yesterday? Complete wall-to-wall coverage. And people on Twitter, the verified check marks, as you would expect, saying, oh, well, that's it. It's over for Trump now, isn't it? Listen, we had a year of the left saying, oh, the stock market's got, you know, nothing to do with Main Street. Wall Street's got nothing to do with Main Street. This has got nothing to do with Americans, ordinary Americans and their financial situation. Soon as it drops 1,500 points, oh, it's got everything to do with it. So it's just this same narrative over and over again. For a year, they said it was all thanks to Obama. As soon as it tanks, they turn around and blame Trump. So they're going to do it again. Whether this is a correction or not remains to be seen. Obviously,
no, but I agree. I'm saying, aren't there things even more important than money? It's great to have that, but we culturally and societally and sovereignty-wise, what we're getting is what it's all about. If you don't have that, the prosperity doesn't flow.
Well, no, I mean, but if you take regulation off and you encourage small and medium businesses to grow, it doesn't matter whether the stock market goes back and forth 1,500,000 points. The fundamentals are there for continued growth and to encourage people to start businesses, not to shut them down with regulation, which is what Obama did for 8 years.
And what did you make of the leftist media all celebrating, oh, look, it's down, it's Trump's fault? I mean, these people are absolutely trying to destroy us.
They want America to fail. I mean, you saw it, people were triggered during the State of the Union fleeing the chamber there. They refused to clap record low black unemployment. Alex, let's face it, this is what I said in a tweet today. If there was a global economic collapse, many on the left would completely embrace it and welcome it because they would use it to justify their Trump derangement syndrome. They're quite willing to see America fail, so long as it means they can point the finger at Trump. They want America to fail. It's like being on a plane and wanting the pilot and the co-pilot to have heart attacks.
Oh, exactly.
So I mean,
even though I've had liberals confront me, and I go, isn't your 401k up 35%? They go, yeah, but I don't care.
There was I think it was, who was it, Eichmann, who said, the guy who was triggered by the GIF, who filed a police report for assault because he said he had epilepsy because of a GIF image. That guy, you could probably pull up the tweet if they can find it. He said he'd taken all of his kids' money out of the stock market because it was guaranteed to collapse under Trump. Remember, this was the narrative. As soon as Trump won, the stock market, the economy, now absolutely guaranteed to collapse. It's back up 400 points. Yeah, it's going to go back and forth. But they all took their money out of the stock market as some kind of virtue signal.
You're talking about Kirk Eichenwald, the tentacle porn guy where aliens rape children.
Eichenwald, that's the guy. That's a tweet that has not aged well, where he's talking about he took all his kids' money out of the stock market, and it went up, what was it, like 30% since he made that tweet at least. So obviously there's a correction, and it's related to the Federal Reserve. Economists will tell you that, but these things are going to go back and forth. If you hit, 25,000 in such a short space of time, obviously you're going to get a correction. But as you said, it's the fundamental underlying principles of taking off the regulation, encouraging people to start businesses, lowering tax rates. If you stick with that method, things are generally going to pick up. Things are generally going to be all right, whatever the stock market does.
Tell us what you got coming up, Paul Joseph Watson, in the next 40 minutes. I'm going to butt out here and let you honcho this operation.
Thanks, Alex. Yeah, we've got Michael Heaver coming up at the bottom of the hour. He is the reporter and commentator over at westmonster.com, because we're talking about the UK. And this is what I want to get into now. We got a headline up on Sky News. Theresa May to announce crackdown on social media abuse. We've literally got hundreds of ISIS jihadists, 425 at least, that have returned from Syria and Iraq and have been allowed back into the United Kingdom. They're talking about reintegrating them, giving them benefits, giving them social housing, putting them ahead of the queue of ordinary British citizens for council houses, for free housing, for tax breaks, for social welfare benefits. 425 at least, ISIS jihadists. They're not even tracking a significant portion of those ISIS jihadists. They refuse to say how many. They say it's a significant portion. So we're looking at hundreds of hardened ISIS militants who have come back into the country, who are not being tracked, who are not being surveilled. Meanwhile, the Prime Minister, Theresa May, is devoting government resources at a time when the police forces are completely stretched, when they're begging for people to come out of retirement to join the police. They're putting resources into patrolling online social media abuse. So basically people being mean to each other on the internet. That's what they're focusing on. You got 3,400 people being arrested every year, roughly, in the UK for things they say online. They treat Facebook as being more of a threat than returning ISIS jihadists. Comments on Facebook and more of a threat. It's ridiculous. We'll get back into it after the break. Infowars.com. Don't go away. It is the fourth hour of the Alex Jones Show on this February 6, 2018 edition. Before we get back into the news and go on to talk to our guest, I want to tell you about some of the great specials we have at InfoWarsStore.com, including the all-new product Bodies at a limited time price of $29.95. That's a huge 50% discount. This is the medicinal herb for thousands of years, turmeric, one of the most studied ingredients known today. And after a long search for the perfect turmeric formula, we've finally created a way to deliver this incredible ingredient to you for less. And it is Bodies. This is what I'm taking because I was taking turmeric anyway. It's noted for its powerful antioxidants, bone support, joint support, flexibility support, all the benefits, inflammation support, and immune support. It's got the turmeric root extract. It's got the Boswellia serrata extract, the organic spearmint, sage, lemon balm, and thyme leaves, piperine, which is from black pepper. And of course, we're not even including many of the benefits that have been reported from people taking turmeric. You can go online and read numerous scientific peer-reviewed studies which link it to improve mood. We don't even brag about that on the bottle. We're just talking about the joint support, the mobility support, which again is all documented. With these ingredients, Bodies is a true 360 win, and it can help you, again, with all those issues, including inflammation support and immune support. It's available right now at just $29.95. You get a big, fat, chunky bottle. I think it's got 60 capsules in it. Yeah, it's a 60-day. No, it's actually double that. So, yeah, you take 2 a day. It's a 60-day supply. It is Bodies. It is $29.95, massive 50% off discount, and it's available right now at InfoWarsStore.com. The most advanced formula yet. Also, we have Cellforce there and all the other products, including Pollen Block, which again is 50% off at InfoWarsStore.com with the pollen season starting again. Alex has talked about how much that has helped him. And with the Bodies, I'm taking that. I can personally vouch for it. It's available right now at InfoWarsStore.com for a massive discount. Get it today. Support this network. We're funded only by you. That's how we're able to remain independent. We're not influenced by advertisers telling us what to do. We're not influenced by left-wing boycott campaigns trying to sabotage our financial basis, which other media networks are, prone to because they don't have their own in-house products. We do, which means we're only responsible to you, the listener, the reader, the viewer. So please support us at InfoWarsStore.com. Now, I mentioned this before the break. Let's get into it. Sky News headline: Theresa May to announce crackdown on returning ISIS jihadists? No. Social media abuse. So basically, they want to devote a bunch of resources to, quote, the fact that women, gay people, and members of ethnic minorities are being abused on social media. Now, while all abuse, online abuse, or whatever kind of abuse is abhorrent, this is not a major problem given how stretched our police forces are in the United Kingdom, given how little money we have to devote to them, given how we have over 400 ISIS jihadists returning, being allowed back into the country. It's not like, maybe we shouldn't let hardened ISIS terrorists back into the country. No, that hasn't even been part of the debate. Let them in, roll out the friggin' red carpet. They're even talking about giving them social housing benefits, putting them to the front of the queue in front of ordinary British citizens to get these benefits so we can reintegrate ISIS jihadists into society so we don't lose a generation of young people. Well, I'm afraid they're already lost. And when you've got people being mown down on the streets, you can't afford to be limp-wristed with this kind of thing. But what is the government concentrating on? Online abuse, misogyny on social media. I mean, they did the studies which found that 50% of, quote, misogyny was the responsibility of other women. So they paint it as this big, evil, patriarchal abuse of women. 50% of it is other women. The studies have proven that. And it's Theresa May, again, at the forefront of this, fear-mongering about it. We've got bigger problems in this country. Oh, and by the way, you know who gets the most online abuse? It's conservatives. You look at Tommy Robinson. He gets death threats every single day. He posts them on Twitter. What do the police do about it? Absolutely nothing. He literally has to go and find these people himself. I mean, look at Katie Hopkins. She gets violent threats on a daily basis. Look at Zach Goldsmith. There you see Tommy Robinson confronting one of the individuals who spewed death threats at him after being radicalized by this Islamist on Twitter. He went to the police with it. They did absolutely nothing about it. Now you had Zach Goldsmith, who was the former candidate for mayor of London. He posted yesterday on his Twitter account a letter that one of his constituents had received, an 80-year-old woman, and it said, "We're the real 48%. These are people who voted against Brexit. Quote, we are coming for you. We are going to kill you." Now, that's not just social media. That's a letter being put through the door of an 80-year-old woman's house because she voted for Brexit. So I ask, where exactly is this abuse being directed? They say it's all about gay people, ethnic minorities, Islamophobia, women, and yeah, that happens. But it happens a heck of a lot more from what I've seen to anyone who dares express an opinion right of Chairman Mao on Twitter at this point. The hate, the vitriol is that virulent. So they're not talking about that. The police, whenever Tommy Robinson gets a death threat, the police do absolutely nothing about it. It's a complete joke. So we've got Theresa May fronting this program to devote resources to policing speech on the internet. They literally use that term in the article, policing the internet. That's not a problem that we should put at the front of the queue when we have literal ISIS jihadists roaming free on the streets. Breitbart headline, May government admits significant portion of returned Islamic State jihadists going unpunished. They've not just let them in, they're not even keeping them under surveillance. Why? Oh, we can't afford it. We don't have enough resources. Oh, but you've got enough resources to patrol mean comments on Twitter. Who cares? We've got people being mown down in the streets, for God's sake. Meanwhile, we've got this happening. Bear in mind again that ISIS jihadists are roaming the streets and not even being surveilled. Tell you who is being surveilled. Christian teachers. England, teacher fired for telling lesbian student, God loves you. This was in Bristol, England. A Christian teacher told a lesbian student, oh, I don't agree with your lifestyle, but I love you and Jesus loves you and God loves you. How dare she? She was reported to the government's Prevent Radicalization program. Basically, that means she was reported as a potential terrorist for telling this lesbian student, God loves you. She was fired. Guilty of gross misconduct for that, fired and reported to the government's terrorist radicalization program for saying God loves you to a lesbian student. That's intolerable. Meanwhile, ISIS jihadists are on the streets. They're not doing anything about it. The UK at this point is a complete joke. We'll be back after the break with Michael Heaver to talk about it. Infowars.com. Don't go away. We are live. It is the 4th hour of the Alex Jones Show, and I'm joined by my guest. He is a reporter and commentator for westmonster.com. He's on Twitter at Michael_Heaver, and he is the future Prime Minister of Britain. He is Michael Heaver. Michael, welcome.
How you doing, Paul? That's overplaying it slightly, but thank you very much.
Now, before the break, I was talking about this article, which I woke up to this morning. Absolutely enraged by it, as you can imagine. Theresa May has announced she'll basically front a new government body, or a government program at least, to devote resources to tackling online abuse, which basically means mean comments on the internet, to, quote, better police the internet. We've also got the government funding a dedicated national security unit to tackle fake news and disinformation, which we know is a completely subjective term. Michael, I know the government can do more than one thing at a time, but can this country really afford to be policing speech so Theresa May can look good and so she can virtue signal? Or do you think there are more pressing matters, more pressing security matters that we should be concentrating right now in this country?
Well, as you mentioned, Paul, I mean, the situation in Britain now is quite extraordinary in terms of returning British jihadis. This is something that we at Westminster have been looking at for a number of months now. And I just want to lay this out to your viewers that aren't aware of this. This isn't just a British phenomenon. We're seeing this go on across Europe and right across the world. Hundreds and hundreds of jihadis that are so committed to Islamic State that they've gone out and supported Islamic State in Syria and Iraq, risked their lives to get there. These people are out there. About half of them have come back that went from Britain, have returned. And we're now in a situation where the government are basically saying a significant proportion aren't deemed to be of national security risk. Can you imagine how dedicated a jihadist, how sick you have to be to go and support these people that you know burn people alive, rape children, abuse people, kill people, torture people? These people are so committed they've gone over there. Hundreds have come back. And our government, our security services apparently are deeming them, hundreds of them, to not be worth scrutinising in terms of national security. That many of them may be walking the streets without any analysis at all. And this isn't just going on in Britain, as I say. This is right across Europe. And as you mentioned, to have hundreds of these people walking around in Britain, I think is horrifying. What's even more horrifying is it's going on, as I say, right across Europe in other countries. And you're right. The priority here, the number one priority for any government should be to protect the public, to protect the people of those countries. And yet we see this incredible situation where hundreds and hundreds of jihadis, hardened, potentially trained to kill, are back in the country and being assessed as not being of national security concern. It simply doesn't add up, and I think we need more answers on exactly who these people are.
Well, exactly. And I mean, I contrast it to this. The fact that per year, this is a rough number, British police arrest 3,395 people every year for, quote, offensive online comments. Those are people who say things on Facebook. Yes, you may be offended by them. They may be racist. They may be Islamophobic. But they've got plenty of resources to devote to that. Meanwhile, you know, the BBC reported it's not practical for police to investigate all crime. So it's not just with the terrorism threat, it's with the crime threat as well. And yet they're Theresa May is constantly banging on about, oh, online abuse. Yet that's actual resources, that's actual police time that's been dedicated to that. We also had another story today, Michael, which I mentioned on the show. There was a teacher in Bristol who was fired for telling a lesbian student, God loves you, a Christian teacher. They reported her to the government's counter-terrorism program, the PREVENT program, as a radicalization threat. She was fired from her job. You know, and meanwhile, those are the people being reported as terrorists, and she was investigated. It wasn't just laughed off, as it should have been. Meanwhile, as he said, you got hundreds of actual terrorists that have come back from Syria, from Iraq, fighting for ISIS, potentially beheading people, stoning people to death, and hundreds of them have just been let loose. They're not even under surveillance. Do you think it's actual, you know, it's actually related to a resource issue, or is it just this general disregard for not treating Islamic terrorism with the importance it should be treated?
Well, let me say this, Paul. I mean, there's a new defence secretary in Britain called Gavin Williamson. And he came, and this is what really perplexes me about this situation. He came in, and Gavin Williamson basically said, rightly in my opinion, that jihadis that go abroad and support Islamic State should either be killed and certainly should never be let back into Britain. And yet, when you have a defence secretary in government saying that, the British policy appears to be something very different. So it seems to me that on one hand, you've got these ministers saying things like Rory Stewart was another one, I remember, saying that these people shouldn't be allowed back, they should be killed abroad. And yet the actual policy is that hundreds are back. So then I start to ask the question, Paul. Then I start to ask the question, have these people been allowed back by the government? Has there been a deal done, some sort of conversation had? Or is it the case that a complete incompetence and weak borders have actually allowed these people to return, and the government have only found out about it upon their return? Because I don't see how you marry up the fact that government ministers, including the defence secretary, are basically saying we should kill these people, they shouldn't come back, with the fact that right now, in this country, hundreds of them are back. I think we need a serious answer on that, how we can have, as I say, the government saying one thing, and yet government policy seems to be pointing towards a completely different reality, and a quite scary one, to be quite honest with you.
It's absolutely incredible. And I mean, after the last terror attack, I think it was the London Bridge attack, you know, Theresa May said enough is enough. And still she's continuing with these policies of treating online mean comments on the internet as more of a threat, more of a concern than actual terrorists on the streets. It's absolutely baffling to me. Let's talk about Theresa May. You know, she was in a position where she could have seized on this populist wave that swept Europe over the past 18 months. She completely failed. She failed to be bold, which is what she needed to be. She would have had the support of the population if she'd done that. You know, she's got the leadership skills of a dishcloth. She keeps getting in spats with Trump, you know, just to virtue signal even more about how she's, you know, not like Trump. You know, she's on course to lose an election, according to the current polls, to a man who literally supports terrorist groups and socialist policies that have wrecked nations like Venezuela. That's how pathetic she is. How on earth, Michael, is Theresa May still in office, and what's it going to take to turf her out?
Well, it's quite incredible. If you look at that, the Davos event where you had Donald Trump lay out his vision, which was basically this phenomenal vision for an America that had strong borders, that welcomed only those that had something to contribute and wanted to be part of the, sort of his vision for America. And you can contrasted that with Theresa May's speech, where no one can actually remember much of what she said because it was just so dull, so boring. And yeah, what you see now in the Conservative Party is that all of the favourites to now succeed Theresa May, and there's quite a bit of speculation here in the UK, of course, that she may be ousted. All of the favourites to succeed Theresa May are Jacob Rees-Mogg, Michael Gove and Boris Johnson, all campaigned for leave, for Brexit in the referendum we had here in Britain. And I think that speaks to me in that people have had enough, really, of this slow plodding approach. You know, a lot of people went out and voted leave to get back control of Britain's borders. And we're now being told by the government that's not going to happen until at least 2021. Oh, and by the way, the government want you to believe that in 2019, when we leave the EU, we then have to enter a transition period whereby we'll still be having to listen to EU laws, and we'll be having to implement new EU laws as well. The whole thing's a complete dog's dinner, and that's why you're now seeing Brexiteers surge of support. That's why you're seeing serious doubts in Theresa May. Brexit is not being delivered, and there's a lot of impatience growing and a lot of anger as well.
And I want to get more into Brexit after the break. I put out a tweet a couple of days ago, you know, retweet for Rees-Mogg being Prime Minister. I think it got about 10,000 retweets. Talking about Mogmentum, he's got a hell of a lot of Mogmentum since that incident at the university on, I think it was Friday, where he confronted, not in an aggressive way, but to actually shut down and shame those thuggish, they call them protesters. They weren't protesters. So there's a lot of momentum behind Mog right now. A lot of support. We'll talk about it after the break with Michael Heaver. This is the Alex Jones Show Live, Infowars.com. We'll be back. We are back live with Michael Heaver of Westmonster.com, who hails from the current acid attack capital of Europe, as do I, London. And I wanted to ask Michael about that. Michael, we've seen this surge in knife crime. We're going to get back into Brexit in a second, but we've seen this surge in knife crime and acid attacks, especially over the course of the last year. Violent crime way up. Have we nailed down if there is a correlation between this surge in violent crime and acid attacks with mass migration and with overpopulation?
Well, look, Paul, I certainly think the areas of London now become very lawless. We saw at the end of last year a news story emerge of delivery drivers in swathes of London after certain times at night, when it got dark, refusing basically to deliver anymore. I mean, if that isn't a no-go area, I don't know what is. And what we're seeing, I think, is a lot of different factors playing into this. I think we're seeing a cut in police numbers and law and order, really, in Britain has gone so soft now. The messages that we send out to our youngsters are so weak. We do not send out a strong enough message. And you're right, the statistics on this are absolutely horrendous. If you look at something like knife crime, 21% increase year on year. Gun crime in London, up 44% since 2014. Robberies year on year across the country, up 29%. Reported rape, up 29%. So this isn't although acid attacks, we're seeing this as a new phenomenon, unfortunately, that's a scourge in our streets. I think there's a wider context to this, actually, Paul, which is that we're seeing a complete breakdown in law and order as a result of a very, very weak approach, as a result of cutting police numbers. And we're really seeing violent crime, especially, rising nationally at huge numbers. As I say, a 20% year-on-year increase in knife crime, knife offences, a 44% increase in London on gun crime since 2014. These are huge rises in relatively small amounts of time. So it's clearly not going away anytime soon. And if we don't change tact in this country and start actually having neighbourhoods where we see police on the street, because you never see it anymore, then I'm afraid we're going to see this scourge of violence continue, I'm afraid.
Yeah, a lot of those police are probably too busy knocking on people's doors because they said something offensive on Facebook. Again, 3,395 people arrested for offensive online comments. They said it's not practical for police to investigate all crime. And yet we have this wave of violent crime, this wave of acid attacks. But don't worry, because Sadiq Khan, his main policy over the past month or two has been the implementation of transgender toilets in London. And we know that that's obviously more important than acid attacks. As he said, actual no-go zones now in areas of London, which again, the media claims all day long don't exist. They do exist for the people who have to go into them and refuse to do so for their own safety. I want to move quick. We've got about 7 minutes left, Michael. The NHS. Yesterday, Trump tweeted about it based off of what Nigel Farage said on Fox News, basically, that people were protesting on the streets about the state of the NHS. Again, not a slight against the people who work for the NHS, because that is one hell of a tough job. But he drew attention to it. The left, again, went crazy. They don't go crazy when Corbyn talks about it, because he's God, obviously. But when Trump talks about the problems with the NHS, they go insane because they treat it as some kind of religious deity that can't be criticized. Michael, does the NHS, which for our American audience is basically socialized healthcare, does it really live up to its moniker right now in this country as the envy of the world?
Well, look, you've had doctors and nurses in this country now describe it as third world at times. That's their words, not mine. And Nigel Farage was making a very basic point. There's a complete state of denial in Britain over this very, very basic fact, Paul. The last set of annual population growth figures showed that the UK population increased by 538,000 in 1 year. That is the highest amount for 70 years. Now, it wasn't all driven by mass migration, but 62% of it was. These are the official government statistics. How can a country like Britain have over 500,000 a year population growth? That's a hell of a lot of patients. There's a hell of a lot of babies. There's a hell of a lot of young people. There's a hell of a lot of people needing care. How can that not have an impact on hospitals? And as I say, the thing that frustrates me over here is you'll see TV report after TV report after TV report with nurses, doctors, and fantastic medical staff at their wits' end saying, we cannot cope with this. We've got people waiting in corridors for hours because we have nowhere to put them. And yet never do you see in any of these reports this correlation with this explosion in population growth. As I say, 538,000 UK population growth, the last set of figures, the highest for 70 years. And no one makes that correlation. Nigel Farage dared to do it. Nigel Farage pointed this out, this fact that if you have this rapidly expanding population, it pushes your health system to the limit. And yet no one in this country is talking about it. No one wants to deal with it. And we see, as I say, report after report with nurses, doctors and all the rest of it saying our workload's becoming completely and utterly ridiculous. We cannot handle this many people. We have too many patients. Yeah, because the population is surging, fueled by a mass migration boom that no one wants to talk about, no one wants to control. And even after voting for Brexit, we're not seeing politicians, we're not seeing the government saying we're going to bring down numbers at this time and this is how we're going to do it. There is no plan to do that. And again, I sense that there's massive dissatisfaction and growing anger at the lack of action on controlling Britain's borders and bringing these numbers down to sensible levels.
I mean, I've had conversations with leftists, and I asked them, you love and support the NHS, right? Yeah, of course. And you also support mass uncontrolled immigration and population growth that's never going to end. Yeah, I support that as well. No, you can't have both. You can't have your cake and eat it. It doesn't work. It's collapsing. I want to move on to the Trump visit, of course. The Corbyn-Khan-driven narrative, Michael, is that most Brits don't want to see Donald Trump visit the UK. We've seen a lot of frothing and whining about this over the past few months. Of course, we've had calls to outright ban him from the UK, some of which are being supported by councils in London. Does that paint an accurate picture of exactly what the people of the UK think about Trump's potential visit?
Well, no, we've seen new figures out today that show there's been a 14% surge since December in the amount of people in Britain that want to see a state visit from Trump. The amazing paradox to me, Paul, is that you have Barack Obama, who came to Britain, let's not forget, before the Brexit referendum, and basically said, if you guys dare to vote for your country's independence, you better know you're going to be back of the queue for a trade deal. And then you have President Trump, who couldn't be further from that, who sits down with the British Prime Minister recently and said, we want to massively increase trade, we want to bump a trade deal, we want to create jobs. And yet you have idiots in this country who turn around and say, oh, we couldn't possibly have the US president. It's an amazing paradox. But no, I think opinions changing very, very quickly. I think a lot of the media scrutiny of Trump is way over the top here. You talk about things like the Dow Jones. I mean, that's virtually underreported, the things that have gone on. The massive economic boom that's on its way in America is virtually underreported. And I think what an amazing prospect it is for Brexit Britain to have such a strong ally, so openly welcoming of increasing trade and all the rest of it between our two countries to create jobs. I think it's a marvellous thing. And I think the European Union should be a little bit worried because some of Trump's comments about what he thinks of them aren't too flattering. I don't think Trump's a fan of the protectionist, globalist European Union.
Well, exactly. I mean, when it comes to Trump's visit, I mean, you got to ask the question at some point, is Sadiq Khan and his ilk, by constantly banging on about how they want to ban Trump, at what point are they harming the national interest? I mean, that's the question that I often ask myself. But we got a couple of minutes left. Michael, just tell people where they can find you on Twitter and about Westmonster.com.
Yeah, so I'm at Michael_Heaver on Twitter. It's Westmonster.com. Little play on words there from Westminster here in London, where the politicians and lords, all the rest of the establishment hang out, where we're trying to challenge that a bit with Westmonster. And basically, you're going to be seeing a lot of more video content and things like that coming up from us. We're basically trying to highlight things, guys. So many things in Britain get underreported. Did you know, if I'm quick, New Year's, 4 young men stabbed to death in 4 separate incidents. It came and went. It was virtually forgotten in a couple of weeks. And we're seeing these stabbings. We're seeing this horrendous surge in violence that's such a scourge that's killing young men at such a rapid rate. We're seeing Brexit being sold out. We're seeing things like illegal immigration. That's becoming an absolute nightmare because we've got open borders. We at Westminster are highlighting all of these things. I'm highlighting all these things. That we've got big momentum here in Britain, and I think people are sick and tired of the establishment. Brexit shows that. Trump's showing that. And Paul, your numbers and info will show that as well.
Indeed, they do. Quick prediction. Give me a yes or no. Is Theresa May going to be the leader of the Conservative Party at the next election? Is she still going to be in power?
Nope. Don't think so.
I hope that prediction comes to fruition and that we get an onrush of Mogmentum, which is what looks like it's taking hold right now. Michael Heaver, thanks for joining us. The website is westmonster.com. Thanks again. There goes Michael Heaver. That's going to wrap up the show. War Room with Owen Schroyer is coming up right now. Breaking news at Infowars.com. As the Dow closes, it was up about 582 points last time I checked. Owen will pick it up over on the War Room, Infowars.com. Thanks for joining us.
Hello, this is Hank Hill, and I'm telling you what, you need to listen to Alex Jones.
Yeah. Infowars.com.
If you don't watch it, you're going to end up like Jason Adderley's boy. Deal me out this hand, Jason. I'm about to bust. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought this was the bathroom. Oh, good Lord.
Scanning. Control. Manipulate scientific data. Take over. Blast. Control. World government. Shut down infrastructure. Ship everything to China. Just look at this person.
From the front lines of the information war, it's Alex Jones.
The globalists are losing, but they're doubling down their attacks. There's one thing they fear, and it's people power. InfoWars has defeated their censorship so far only because of you spreading the links, spreading the articles, subscribing, clicking the notification buttons, and getting the articles and videos out. But they are intensifying their censorship, so now it's more important than ever to ensure we keep the First Amendment alive and well right here in America and free speech worldwide. So from Australia to countries in Africa, to Europe, to Mexico, to right here in the USA, I salute you all for taking action and defending free speech. We will prevail.
Maximize your potential and take your body back with Super Male Vitality. We're breaking the conditioning and fighting back against the globalists' war on male vitality. Our ultimate non-GMO formula is sourced from powerful organic herbs that have been gathered from around the world and then concentrated for maximum potency. Super Male Vitality was developed to activate your body's natural processes instead of using synthetic chemicals. InfoWars Life wants to bring you the highest quality products. Our unique combination of ingredients is designed to assist the body in regulating proper balance and creating superior vitality in males. Support your body and mind and take yourself to the next level. Boost your vitality and energize your life. Take control of your body. Grab a bottle of Super Male Vitality today at InfoWarsLife.com. That's InfoWarsLife.com.